These are the dumbest purchases lottery winners ever made. From spending £120,000 to buy land on the moon, to scooping £3 million for breast enlargement for herself and two sisters, these winners went insane. Beginning with Evelyn Adams. Evelyn Adams made history as the first person to win the lottery twice. Initially, she secured $3.9 million in October 1985. Followed by another windfall of $1.4 million just 4 months later, a probability of approximately 1 in 17.3 trillion. Despite her remarkable luck, Evelyn acknowledged her diminishing lottery fortune, declaring her intention to quit playing. Rather than continuing with lottery tickets, Evelyn opted for a strategic move, investing in various businesses, including the convenience store where she purchased the lucky tickets. However, this prudent decision couldn't offset her underlying gambling issue. Instead of curbing her tendency, she redirected her winnings to Atlantic City casinos, depleting her entire remaining fortune on slot machines. The consequences were significant. Her businesses faced successive failures, and by 2012, Evelyn found herself residing in a trailer park. In candid remarks to the media, she highlighted the sobering reality that winning the lottery didn't live up to its glamorous reputation. Number 11. Colin Weir. Back in 2011, Colin struck a gold with £161 million in the Euro Millions jackpot. But Colin and his wife Christine took things to a whole new level. They shared their fortune with family, friends, and charities, living a life of luxury with fancy properties, cars, and dreamy vacations. But this guy had a goal that kicked his enthusiasm into high gear. He wanted to own his local football team, Partick Thistle FC. So what did he do? Well, he pumped £2.5 million into the club, clearing debts and supporting the youth academy. However, not everything went according to Colin's game plan. Financial troubles, poor performance, and a hostile takeover bid threw some unexpected challenges his way. What was his next action in the midst of the challenges? Despite the hurdles, Colin had big dreams, buying the stadium and handing it over to the fans. Now, that's a goal worth cheering for, but the beautiful game can be a roller coaster. In 2019, facing the ups and downs, Colin withdrew his support and sold his shares to a passionate fan group. Tragically, Colin's journey came to an end later that year at the age of 71. But despite how captivating and impressive his spending is, this other guy, Peter Lavery, went all the way to whiskey. Number 10. Peter Lavery. The Belfast bus driver Peter Lavery turned his £10.2 million lottery sensation into a life of wonder, mansion, and world travel. He quit his job 2 days after he won the lottery in 1996. Most of us might splurge on the usual suspects, but not Peter. He went full throttle, investing in a pub, a hotel, and even a taxi company. After his win, he once took his 10 closest pals to a 5-star resort in St. Lucia in the Caribbean. This happened not soon after he partied for 4 or 5 days with 22 people in New York for St. Patrick's Day. This guy's action later left many rubbing their eyes in disbelief. Peter Lavery, the man with a Midas touch, decided to put £4 million into a whiskey distillery. Not a yacht, not a private island, a whiskey distillery. And not just any distillery, mind you. He took an old building in Belfast, sprinkled some renovation magic, and voila! The first whiskey distillery in the city in over a century was born. Yet the name of the brand was interesting. Ever heard of the Danny Boy brand? Peter named his whiskey after the famous Irish song Danny Boy. Now, who wouldn't want to sip on a glass of Danny Boy and let the wonders of the Irish melody unfold? But let's take a moment to ponder. If you struck it rich, would you follow Peter's whiskey-making footsteps? Or are you more of a sip-and-enjoy type? After some setbacks, Lavery resurfaced with a new brand, Titanic Whiskey. But Peter's whiskey venture is still pouring in profits. Number 9. Greta and Tony Dodd. Greta and Tony Dodd were a retired couple from Lancashire, England. When they won £2.4 million, or $3.3 million in the national lottery in 2007, they decided to spend their money on the usual things, like a new house, a car, and holidays. But they also had a more unusual priority: new knees. Greta, a dance enthusiast at heart, had to bid farewell to her passion due to pesky joint issues. With their newfound fortune, the Dodds embarked on a knee rejuvenation journey, splurging £10,000 each on knee replacement surgery. Now, you might be wondering, why knees? Well, it turns out that dancing dreams can be as priceless as any exotic getaway. The Dodds swear by their decision, proclaiming it to be the best thing they ever did. Who knew a lottery wish could be as practical as it is peculiar? While their purchase was not dumb in itself, it was certainly unusual. Most people would probably not think of knee surgery as a lottery wish. Number 8. Keith Goff. Keith Goff's lottery triumph turned to tragedy. A £9 million jackpot, a dream life in the making, and the excitement of newfound wealth went downwards. Keith, alongside his wife Louise, hit the jackpot in June 2005, setting the stage for a life-altering adventure. Luxuries like racehorses, fast cars, and an executive box at Aston Villa became part of their newfound reality. This man paid $250,000 for a racehorse that ultimately led to his downfall. Keith's extravagant spending spree left him penniless, alone, and battling the demons of alcoholism, ultimately succumbing to a suspected heart attack at the Princess Royal Hospital in Telford, Shropshire. In the early days of his windfall, Goff, once behind the wheel of a T-registered Skoda, found himself in disbelief. Pinch myself in disbelief. The dreams that had eluded him all his life were suddenly tangible. Little did he know this jackpot would become a double-edged sword. 2 years post-win, the fairy tale unraveled. Keith parted ways with his wife of 25 years, spiraling into a cycle of heavy drinking and seeking solace in the confines of the Priory Rehabilitation Clinic in Birmingham. As the money poured in, so did the misfortune. Goff's encounters with conmen drained £700,000 from his pockets, leaving him not only financially crippled, but emotionally shattered. "My life was brilliant, but the lottery has ruined everything," he lamented. Keith Goff's spending might be insane, but what did you think of a man who bagged £1 million and used it to buy land on the moon? Number 7. David Copeland. David struck gold with a £1 million jackpot in 2000, but his story takes an unexpected turn. While many would envision a life of extravagance, David chose a frugal path, indulging in the simple joys of baked beans for dinner at his rural Hertfordshire abode. The wonder doesn't stop there. After the big win, David pops open supermarket champagne for a modest celebration, only to follow it up with a celestial splurge. He bought land worth £120,000 on the Moon, Venus, and Mars. A Concorde enthusiast at heart, David soared through the skies on the supersonic plane not once but twice before it bid farewell in 2003. His extravagances also include annual cruises and front row seats to the tunes of cabaret star Jane McDonald. And here's the twist. Rather than lounging in luxury, David takes the wheel as a £22-an-hour chauffeur for hire, steering through the lanes of high society. Upgrading from the 60s two-bed to a semi-detached four-bed for £192,500, David's frugality shines through, proving that he's no typical lotto big spender. However, this man from Georgia funded a crystal meth ring with his lottery wins. Number 6. Ronnie Music. Ronnie Music hit the jackpot with a dazzling $3 million in lottery winnings. After this, the guy decided to roll the dice in a way that nobody expected. Ronnie invested his fortune not in stocks or real estate, but in a crystal meth ring. He went all Breaking Bad with his newfound riches. Imagine the amazement and wonder as he dives headfirst into the risky business of buying and selling crystal. This guy's pockets are full of lottery cash, but he attempted to peddle a whopping 11 pounds of crystal meth with his street value soaring over $500,000. Now that's a high-stakes game. But hold on, there's more. Federal agents swooped in and uncovered a jaw-dropping treasure trove. Over $1 million worth of meth, firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and a cool $600,000 in cash. Ronnie Music Jr. isn't just your average lottery winner. He's the protagonist in a real-life thriller that leaves us with mouths open in awe. Just like Ronnie Music Jr., this other guy won 27 mil in the lottery, but ended up blowing all his money in just 5 years and started living in a shed covered in poo. Number 5. David Lee Edwards. David Lee Edwards, a man whose life took a wild turn after winning a quarter share of the colossal $280 million Powerball jackpot in 2001, was a convicted felon. After hitting the jackpot, Edwards celebrated his newfound fortune with a lavish Malibu wedding to his girlfriend, Shauna Maddox. The spending spree kicked off in style, and boy did he make it rain. From a jaw-dropping $1.6 million mansion to a neighboring $600,000 house, Edwards wasn't holding back. Luxury cars? Yeah, he had them. A $90,000 Dodge Viper and a $200,000 Lamborghini Diablo, just to name a few. But wait, there's more. The icing on the extravagant cake was a $1.9 million private Learjet. In a bid to invest wisely, Edwards dabbled in a fiber optics installation company and a limo business, throwing a cool $4.5 mil into the mix. And if that's not enough drama, he shelled out $500,000 in a custody battle over his teenage daughter, Tiffany. But here comes the sudden turn. The dazzling lifestyle didn't last. Edwards burned through $3 million within just 3 months of winning, and $12 million in the first year. The tale takes a dark turn, with overspending and drug addiction taking center stage. Fast forward to 2006, and Edwards and Miss Maddox found themselves penniless, living in a storage shed. The hardships continued, with reports of dire living conditions. Miss Maddox eventually moved on and remarried, leaving Edwards behind. In a tragic turn, Edwards passed away in 2013 at the age of 58, having exhausted all his winnings and leaving debts in his wake. Number 4. Sarah Cockings. Sarah Cockings, a powerhouse from Whitley Bay, Tyneside, who after hitting the jackpot in 2006, didn't just stop at treating herself, she went above and beyond for her loved ones. Sarah not only splurged on a house for her parents, but also gifted her sisters, Emma and Alex, with life-changing plastic breast surgery. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Sarah recently spilled the beans on her own boob journey. She underwent a breast operation because, as she puts it, they were wrecked by breastfeeding. And now people on the street are reportedly asking, are those the lottery boobs? Now, that's a question you don't hear every day. In a candid revelation at a celebration for the lottery's 25th birthday, Sarah shared, "Just after I won, I bought my 2 sisters boob jobs. Everyone remembers that. But now I've had one myself because mine were wrecked by breastfeeding. It's my 2-year boob birthday. I love them." The enthusiasm is contagious. But the spending spree doesn't end there. Sarah, fueled by her newfound fortune, also treated herself to a Mini Cooper and a Range Rover Sport. And in a move that showcases her commitment to personal growth, she returned to university after the massive win. So, if you think Sarah Cocking's spending on boobs was frivolous, then take a look at Britain's youngest national lottery winner, who won £1.8 million of prize money and spent it on breast enlargement. Number 3. Callie Rogers. Callie Rogers, who at the tender age of 16 struck gold with a nearly £2 million lottery win in 2003. She was a checkout girl at the Co-op in Cockermouth, Cumbria, earning £3.60 an hour, suddenly catapulted into the world of multi-million-pound winnings. Callie Rogers became an overnight sensation, and her spending took the term splurge to a whole new level. She spent £18,000 on boob jobs and £300,000 on a wardrobe that could make any fashionista jealous, and £500,000 on gifts for friends and family. Callie's wallet was a whirlwind of activity, leaving her, well, penniless. But that's not where the story ends. In 2021, we found Callie facing a 22-month driving ban after her 4x4 decided to take a detour into a hedge while she was apparently high on cocaine, police pursuits, pepper spray, and country lane escapades. Then, in 2018, Callie faced an unfortunate night out that ended in an assault by 2 women, leaving her with broken ribs, smashed teeth, concussion, and permanent sight damage. And just when you think you've heard it all, in March 2021, news broke that the lottery winner was claiming universal credit despite her 2003 windfall of £1.8 million. However, she soon regretted her decisions and said she was happier before she won the lottery. She lost most of her money and became depressed and suicidal. She also had to have corrective surgery to fix the damage done by her previous operations. She said she wished she had never had the surgery and that she was happy with her natural body. The next young lottery winner on our list promised to use the money wisely, but it went the opposite direction. Number 2. Jay Vargas. Jay Vargas was 19 years old and a construction worker from South Carolina when he became the lucky winner of a staggering $35.3 million in the 2008 Powerball jackpot. Jay wasted no time in making bold moves, opting for the lump sum of $17.3 million. He declared his intention to buy a new house, a car, and a motorcycle. The epitome of living the dream, right? Demonstrating a level of future planning that would make financial experts nod in approval, Jay outlined his responsible intentions. His priorities were to buy his mother a house, quit his job, and set up trust funds for his siblings. Hiring an accountant, who happened to be his aunt, and planning to engage a lawyer and financial consultant, Jay seemed poised to join the league of lottery winners who handled their windfalls wisely. However, the reality check hit hard. Despite initial aspirations, Jay's financial stability took a nosedive. Instead of growing his wealth, he invested in schemes that seemed to do the opposite. The grand finale of his investment, which seemed awkward, was a TV show called Wrestlicious Takedown. Imagine an all-female wrestling show with tight clothing and dry humor. Launched with the help of Johnny Caffarella and Jimmy Hart, the show received scathing reviews and was yanked off the air after just 13 episodes. As the wrestling dreams faded into obscurity, so did Jay's fortune. The show's failure left everyone wondering, where is Jonathan Vargas now? After disappearing from the media spotlight, his current whereabouts remain a mystery, leaving us with a tale of amazement, curiosity, and wonder about a young lottery winner's journey from dreams to the unpredictable world of wrestling. Number 1. Michael Carroll. Diagnosed with learning disabilities and facing a tough upbringing, Michael's life took an unexpected turn when he snagged a £9.7 million UK Lotto win at the tender age of 19. So what does a teenager with a newfound fortune do? Well, Michael bought a mansion and decided to build his very own racetrack in his backyard. Yes, you heard me right. A racetrack for his luxury cars. And spoiler alert, it didn't end in the glamorous tale you might expect. Amidst mansion purchases turned into demolition derbies, banger racing tracks, and a showcase of crashing cars, Michael didn't forget his roots. Despite a strained relationship with his family, he generously handed £1 million each to his mom, sister, and aunt, giving away a substantial chunk of his winnings. But it doesn't stop there. Facing the complexities of managing his newfound wealth, Michael sought financial advice and set up an investment bond, accumulating £3.9 million. Yet the saga doesn't shy away from the dramatic. Living large in Swaffham after hitting the jackpot, Michael's mansion became the epicenter of a bizarre tale involving blackmailers and a tragedy that shook him to his core. 5 of his Rottweiler's throats were cut by these blackmailers. He came out one morning and saw the scenario. This chilling scene led Michael to fork over £130,000 to make the blackmail nightmare vanish. After that, he made a decision to leave Swaffham with his family, leaving behind a chapter of mystery. Michael's personal life takes a wild turn. He married his pregnant girlfriend, Sandra, but the marriage took an unexpected route involving accusations of prostitution and drugs, resulting in a settlement that left Sandra with £1.4 million. But what's a millionaire's life without a touch of extravagance? Michael Carroll knew how to throw a party, dropping a cool £50,000 on a single party. Prostitutes were VIP guests at these parties. And beyond that, Michael claims of sleeping with over 4,000 women, including up to 8 in a single night. Now, the big question is, where is Michael Carroll today? The high-rolling lottery winner is now in Scotland, working as a logger, earning a humble £10 an hour. Winning the lottery can make people rush into splurging on things they don't even need. Some go on to buy the fanciest of homes, some travel the world, while others just throw their winnings on the most random things and soon lose it all. However, not everybody falls into this trap. Some lottery winners are super smart with their cash right from the start. Today, we're going to talk about these unique individuals and what exactly it is that they do immediately after winning that makes them so smart. Let's go. Number 15. Brad Duke. Brad Duke is probably the smartest lottery winner of all time. The man was a 33-year-old fitness instructor from Idaho back in 2005 when he hit the jackpot in a way that would stun anyone. He used to play the lottery regularly, but like most people, he never really thought he would win big. Then one day, while stopping for gas, he decided to check his Powerball ticket. The clerk was shocked to find out that Brad had won. But Brad didn't know exactly how much. Clueless about the amount of the jackpot, he took his ticket and left before the clerk could even tell him he'd won $220 million. Brad found out about it a few days later that he wasn't just a few $1,000s richer, but instead was a multi-millionaire. The only person he initially told it to was his dad. Together, they mapped out a plan to invest the money. Brad's big dream was to turn his millions into $1 billion. He got right to work. He put together a team of the best financial advisors and lawyers to make sure his new fortune didn't just slip through his fingers. And guess what? By 2016, he had increased his wealth by $100 million. And that's not all. Today, he has a net worth of over $1 billion USD. So yeah, his dream did come true, all because he acted smart with his money, very much like this next winner on the list. Number 14. Sue Herdman. This is the incredible story of Sue Herdman. After winning $1.2 million in January 2010, the former hairdresser from Eardisley near Hereford chose an unusual path. Instead of wasting her money on fancy things, Sue pursued her passion for pig farming. Previously, she was a hairdresser. She was struggling financially as a single mother. You'll be surprised to hear that winning the lottery didn't change her practical nature. She continued to hunt for bargains and invested her winnings in property rather than splurging on extravagant items. Although her days now start at the crack of dawn and involve working knee-deep in mud, Sue's found happiness in her new rural lifestyle. She has the money, she just doesn't like to show it off. She perfectly shows the world how winning the lottery doesn't have to lead to a glamorous life, but to one of fulfilling personal passions. Number 13. Cynthia Stafford. Cynthia Stafford's success story started with luck, but she carried it with hard work afterward. In 2007, she won $112 million in the California lottery. The day she won, she decided to transform her jackpot into a pathway for both personal and professional growth. Rather than simply enjoying the newfound wealth, Cynthia immediately put her money to work, first by supporting her family, as she shared portions of her winnings with her brother and father. After that, she invested her money in real estate and business and founded Queen Nefertari Productions LLC. Through these ventures, Cynthia multiplied her fortune and also established herself as a successful businesswoman with a net worth now estimated at $10 million. While Cynthia made smart choices by investing in the most profitable field, these next winners invested in something they were passionate about. Number 12. Elaine and Derek Thompson. Elaine and Derek Thompson really know how to spend their money wisely after winning a lottery jackpot of $3.42 million USD years ago. Elaine still works her shifts at Marks & Spencer, not because she has to, but because she wants to stay grounded. Right after winning, she didn't go on a spending spree. Instead, she gave $1.27 million to her brother and helped her kids get their own places. Elaine isn't the type to forget her roots. She says that she still sticks to her budget at Morrison's and uses that 25% staff discount at M&S. Derek is the same. He kept his job at Motorola for years before they decided to invest in something together, a holiday cottage resort in Dorset. They both decided to invest some of their money into their shared passion as well, which is horse racing. They've transformed it into their full-time hobby. And it's not all about them. They also donate their money. They've been organizing trips to Lapland to donate to kids. Elaine says winning the lottery hasn't changed how people treat her at work, and she likes it that way. It's clear that the Thompson show you can have millions in the bank and still live a life that's true to who you are. There's one other couple like them who didn't think just about themselves. Number 11. Paul and Sue Rosano. Paul and Sue Rosano are proof that sometimes life works out right when you need it. Before winning the lottery, they were just ordinary folks. Paul worked with heavy machinery, and Sue split her time between a research institute and being a stay-at-home mom. But their world changed dramatically when their 2-year-old granddaughter, Michaela, was diagnosed with Krabbe disease. If you don't know, Krabbe disease is a rare and devastating condition. They could only watch helplessly as the disease took Michaela from them. After 5 years, there came a time when the US Powerball jackpot rose to $1.1 million. Paul, who didn't usually play the lottery much, decided to buy a ticket. On the night of the draw, they were at home watching TV when the winning numbers were announced. Paul checked his ticket and couldn't believe it. They'd actually won. At first, Sue thought he was pranking her, but as they went to the office to confirm it, they were surprised to know that they were millionaires now. After choosing the lump sum option, they took home $88 million. But instead of spending all their money on useless things, they spent the money wisely. They didn't move into a mansion or buy flashy cars. Instead, they enjoyed modest treats like a trip to Hawaii and Disneyland with the family. The real focus of their windfall was something much closer to their hearts. They started the Legacy of Angels Foundation in honor of Michaela to support research into Krabbe disease. Thanks to their foundation, progress in understanding and treating the disease has leapt forward. Now, that's a story of using a lottery win for something truly meaningful. This next smart winner did something like this. Number 10. Lorraine West. Lorraine West's story changed dramatically in 2018 when she won a whopping $343.5 million in the Powerball jackpot. Before this life-changing event, she was a single mom of 3 who worked at an insurance company. But winning the lottery opened up new avenues for her, especially in philanthropy. One of the first things Lorraine did with her newfound wealth was donate $500,000 to the Travis Mills Foundation, which helps wounded veterans. That's a big chunk of change, and it was just the beginning. She didn't just stop at donating. She took it a step further by setting up her own charity, the Callum Foundation. This organization backs everything from animal welfare and veteran support to improving health and education systems. Lorraine's commitment to using her jackpot to support various causes shows she's serious about making a difference. It's clear she views her lottery win as a chance to give back and help others in meaningful ways, just like this next smart winner. Number 9. Les Robbins. In 1993, Les Robbins was a substitute teacher making ends meet on a modest $20,000 per semester. He loved his job and the kids, but let's be honest, the pay wasn't great. Luckily, everything changed when he hit the Powerball jackpot. He won the largest prize in US history at that time. We can only imagine his shock and excitement at that time. After winning, Les split the jackpot with his then-fiancée. Although they've since parted ways, the financial windfall remained with him. With his new riches, Les decided to invest in something close to his heart. He had a passion for working with kids, so he set up Camp Win-A-Lot on 126 acres. He equipped the camp with all sorts of fun stuff: a swimming pool, gym, mini golf course, and even horses for kids to ride. He poured his heart and money into this project, spending almost all his winnings on creating a dream space for kids. Aside from buying a modest Jeep, that's pretty much all Les splurged on. His life after the win was simple as well. He returned to substitute teaching in 2000 by choice, enjoying the role while his camp ran at full capacity. Number 8. Jason Fry. Jason Fry from Florida is the perfect example of a hard-working American. Before hitting the lottery jackpot, he was juggling 3 jobs. pouring concrete, digging wells, and bartending at night. Despite all his hard work, he was struggling financially. He was facing the risk of losing his property and had a second baby on the way. The pressure was too much. Just 3 days before Christmas, perhaps driven by desperation, Jason bought a lottery ticket. That ticket turned out to be worth a life-changing $47 million. Initially, Jason dove into a spending spree. He splurged on a boat, a motorcycle, and a Mustang, and also a house. However, he soon had a change of heart about his financial strategy. Realizing the need for smarter investments, he changed his plans. He started by purchasing a golf driving range, which now brings in about $300,000 a year. He also acquired a Batteries Plus franchise in Fort Myers. This led to buying 3 more stores, which boosted his annual revenue. Today, Jason's smart investments have turned him into a local celebrity, and he continues to grow his earnings, adding to his already substantial lottery savings. Number 7. Robert Salo. Robert Salo's story is a perfect example of how a little bit of luck can go a long way. He was living in Brooklyn with a modest family. He always had his sights set on becoming an electrical engineer, but money was tight, and by the time he was 18, it looked like he would have to give up his dream for a more affordable career path. Then a simple $2 scratch-off ticket changed his story. Robert won $1,000 a week for life. In fact, he won a steady paycheck every week without lifting a finger. While it's not the kind of money that makes headlines, it was more than enough for him. This win meant he could actually pay for college himself and study to be an electrical engineer, just like he'd always wanted. This steady stream of cash took the financial pressure off his family, and Robert could focus on his studies. He didn't have to stress about how to pay for tuition or books. His lottery ticket had it covered. And it was smart of him to not throw the cash at unnecessary things, but instead focus on building a career. Number 6. Yancey Hicks. Back in 2010, Yancey Hicks won the Illinois State Lottery, but it wasn't one of those jaw-dropping mega jackpots. He won $1 million, which is definitely not the largest amount, but it's definitely a life changer if used smartly. And that's exactly what Yancey did. Before his win, he'd been working at McDonald's for many years. He'd always dreamt of running his own business someday. Winning the lottery seemed like his ticket to that dream. With his lottery winnings, Yancey invested in his future by buying a Subway restaurant franchise. It turned out to be a smart move. The restaurant thrived and became a solid source of income. Thanks to his wise investment, Yancey transformed his life from an employee to a successful business owner. His story is a perfect example of how even a relatively modest lottery win can pave the way to achieving one's dreams, especially if the money is spent smartly. Number 5. Brian and Mary Losi. After winning a $22 million Powerball jackpot, Brian and Mary Losi became known for their incredible generosity in their hometown of Bondurant, Iowa. Instead of just splurging on luxuries for themselves, they chose to give back in a big way to their community. Their first major act was to pay off their church's mortgage. After that, they donated $3 million to build a new high school stadium and went on to tackle a local necessity by funding a $4.5 million grocery store. This move filled a gap in the community's needs and also earned them deep respect and gratitude from their neighbors. Beyond these amazing contributions, Brian and Mary established a charitable foundation dedicated to supporting a variety of local projects. They focused on improving education, healthcare, and infrastructure because they strongly believed in investing in their community's development. They also set up scholarship funds to help local students afford higher education. Through their actions, the Losis transformed into local heroes who are still celebrated for their dedication and community spirit. Number 4. Neil Wanless. In 2009, 23-year-old Neil Wanless was scraping by. He was struggling to make ends meet on his family's ranch in South Dakota. But during a routine errand trip to a nearby town, Neil decided to buy a Powerball ticket. He chose the numbers based on his family members' birthdays. Little did he know, this decision would drastically change his life. Neil joked about winning but didn't actually believe it could happen until he checked the numbers and realized he'd won a $232 million jackpot. As expected, the man was overwhelmed. He took a month to claim his prize. According to him, he used that time to plan wisely with his family. Despite the massive win, Neil didn't have any intention of quitting his job. He loved ranching too much and saw the winnings as a means to enhance his passion rather than abandon it. One of his first moves was to buy a much larger ranch, spanning 23 square miles, for $9.9 million. It was a big upgrade from the trailer he'd been living in after his family home was repossessed. Neil also invested in a new house and generously contributed to his community. However, he valued his privacy and largely stayed out of the public eye. He only emerged briefly in 2020 to sell his expansive ranch because he and his Canadian wife were spending more time in British Columbia and Arizona. Despite his low profile, Neil remains one of the wealthiest individuals in South Dakota. And this is what happens if you invest your money wisely. Number 3. Mark Brudenell. In 1997, Mark Brudenell from Stockton-on-Tees, England, hit the lottery jackpot, winning $1.27 million USD. At the time, he was balancing life as a chemical tanker driver and a manager at a local bakery. Even after becoming a millionaire, Mark didn't rush into spending his money. Instead, he thought strategically about the future. 4 years after his big win, he used the majority of his lottery money to set up his own business. Alongside his wife, Mark has successfully run a double glazing business for the past 13 years. Besides their business, Mark and his wife treated themselves to a comfortable lifestyle upgrade. They purchased a spacious home and several lovely cars. They made sure they enjoyed their newfound wealth without going overboard. This is exactly how it should be done. Number 2. Peter Lavery. Peter Lavery was a bus driver back in 1996 in Ireland. At that time, he was earning just about $300 per paycheck. But the man struck a gold with the UK National Lottery when he won £10.2 million, which is roughly $12.5 million US. The best part was that in the UK, lottery winnings are tax-free, so Peter got to keep every penny. Wasting no time, Peter dove straight into investments. He started with something he was passionate about, whiskey. He teamed up with a distillery to create the Danny Boy blended Irish whiskey, which quickly gained rave reviews. After that, Peter invested in a bunch of different businesses and scooped up real estate left and right. Eventually, he owned 30 properties. Peter also got heavily involved in giving back. He supported several local charities and even started a foundation named after his parents. Due to his clever investments, he has managed to triple his initial winnings. Although he's stepped back from the whiskey business, Peter's smart investments are still making him millions. Number 1. Diana Sampson. The next winner on our list is Diana Sampson, who has quite the story. Once working as a visiting barber to support her 2 children, she now enjoys a much different life. You know how? Because she won a $2 million lottery and invested it wisely. She put money into a lingerie business and a profitable restaurant, both of which have been doing very well. She also bought several houses, including some abroad, which she leases out for a steady income. Despite her newfound wealth, Diana has remained humble and hardworking. Her smart investments have allowed her to live comfortably while continuing to provide for her family. From cutting hair to managing investments, Diana's journey shows how a lottery win, coupled with some wise decisions, can truly transform one's life while staying grounded.
There's only one way to win the lottery. It's pure luck. There are a lot of ways to lose everything you won. This is our supercut of the dumbest ways lottery winners went broke that we've covered over the years. Strap in, because it's going to be a wild ride filled with crazy stories. Number 36. Justin Ryder. Even little kids know that just because cartoon characters can jump off a roof without dying, That doesn't mean they should try it themselves. But Justin Ryder had made it into adulthood without realizing that fact. He'd become obsessed with the Austin Powers film Goldmember. He made it his life's goal to have a gold member of his own. And when he amazingly won $600,000, he saw it as an opportunity to finally gold-plate his junk. But he probably should have used real gold. I guess it was just the shiny color he was after, because he opted for lead-based paint. He happily dipped his nether regions into it and continued with his life. But when something didn't feel right, he went on another shopping trip. And this time, he got his hands on some genuine gold-infused paint. He could have taken the first layer of paint off, but I guess he had something important to do, because he just painted over it with his new real gold paint. It didn't take long before Justin was found dead. But what happened? It turned out the cause of death was lead poisoning from the first paint he covered his family jewels in. I doubt that's what he planned, but at least he left this world as shiny as he always wanted to be. Weird way to lose it all, right? The next person on our list sounds like she was competing for weird points. Number 35, Alicia Battle. Alicia Battle always had a talent for getting on the wrong side of the law. She'd already been arrested for keying cars, credit card fraud, and even assault. But in 2003, she tried her luck at her riskiest crime yet, when it was announced that the lucky Mega Millions ticket holder had won a $162 million jackpot. Alicia saw a chance to get rich. She knew she'd purchased a losing ticket from the same store that sold the winning ticket. When no winners came forward to claim their prize, Alicia stepped forward to tell the world she'd won. But she said she tragically lost her ticket. People from all over joined in to try to help her while she filed a police report on it. Big mistake. The real winners were simply getting financial advice before coming forward to claim their prize. They finally arrived to claim their prize, unknowingly exposing Alicia's lie at the same time. Instead of being a multi-millionaire, all Alicia got was another brush with the law for submitting a fake police report. How did she think she was going to get away with that? The same question applies to the next person on this list. Number 34, Joe Antonio Cuitok. Joe didn't win the biggest lottery jackpot ever, but a $750,000 Georgia lottery prize is still pretty amazing. That kind of cash can go a long way if you're an illegal immigrant like Joe. Wait, what? If you're wondering how illegal immigrants can claim lottery prizes, there's a simple answer. They can't. So it's pretty stupid to play the lottery in the first place. But I guess Joe thought he had it figured out. He just asked his boss to collect the money for him. However, Joe hadn't banked on his boss just taking the money for himself. But there's not much you can do about that if you've won money illegally in a country you're not supposed to be in. Joe didn't see it that way. He got so mad, he decided to sue his boss. And that was his last huge mistake. Obviously, his illegal status was discovered thanks to the trial. And he wasn't just deported. He ended up in jail because he'd also taken the time to threaten to kill his boss's family after he took the money. I know, it's almost impressive how many mistakes Joe made. Sure, some people get really lucky, but nobody's ever got that lucky, except maybe for number 33, Evelyn Basor. Very few people are lucky enough to win the lottery not once, but twice. That's exactly what happened to Evelyn Basor. Her first win in 1985 was the biggest jackpot with a huge total of $3.9 million. But the second jackpot sure wasn't small either. Just 4 months later, she had another $1.4 million jackpot to her name. That's the kind of money that can keep you in luxury for the rest of your life. But even though Evelyn was clearly super lucky, she didn't have the smarts to go with it. She gave away loads of her cash. But even worse, she spent most of the rest on gambling. I guess she figured gambling on the lottery had paid off so well that it was her best bet to get more cash. But we could have told her she'd never get that lucky again. She's broke, working 2 jobs to pay for food, and living in a trailer park. She still plays the lottery though. Who knows? Maybe she's third time lucky. There's one mistake that Evelyn didn't make. Her ticket purchases were all legit. That's not true of our next winner. Number 32, Christina Goodenow. Christina Goodenow was lucky enough to win $1 million on an Oregon lottery scratch-off ticket. Amazing, right? It would have been amazing. But in an incredible act of stupidity, she decided it was fine to buy the ticket with a credit card belonging to her boyfriend's dead mom. Obviously, buying lottery tickets with stolen credit cards is illegal. The same way buying anything with a stolen credit card is illegal. But that wasn't Christina's only mistake. Obviously, the moment she received the cash, the feds realized they should probably look into why this lottery ticket was apparently bought by a dead woman. And when they found Christina, they hit their own kind of jackpot. They found a whole collection of crimes she was committing. She was charged with theft, forgery, identity theft, computer fraud, and parole violation. They even found a nice quantity of meth in her possession as the cherry on top of her crimes. I guess she deserved it all if she wasn't even smart enough to hide the drugs when the feds came knocking. It's almost alright to do something that crazy when you're only looking out for yourself, but the next person on our list had kids to look after. Number 31. Gerald Muswagon. Canadian Gerald Muswagon bought a $2 lotto ticket that made him an instant millionaire in 2011. He won a $10 million jackpot but blew through it in just a few short years. He bought a house that doubled as a nightly party spot, hosting his ever-growing legion of hangers-on. He also blew the cash on cars, partying, and gifts, while racking up a string of legal entanglements. By the end, he was doing manual labor on a farm to support his girlfriend and 6 young children. 7 years after his big win, he hung himself in his parents' garage. There are a lot of tragic lottery winners out there. You can blame it on the lottery curse. It got to the next person on our list too. Number 30. Amanda Clayton. Amanda Clayton was going through a pretty rough time in her life. She was only in her early 20s, and she was forced to claim state welfare and use food stamps to be able to eat. It wasn't looking good until something amazing happened. She won $1 million on the Michigan Lottery's Make Me Rich game. That's more than enough money to turn her life around completely, but instead, she chose to do something really stupid. A local news outlet noticed she was still claiming welfare benefits and food stamps a couple years after winning. She hadn't gone broke or anything. She just wanted to have her cake and eat it too. It wasn't long before she was losing a case in court. She got 9 months probation and a fine for her crimes. Sadly, she was found dead of a drug overdose a year later. It's a sad ending, but the next person on our list proves many winners create their own problems. Number 29. Tonda Lynn Dickerson. This story started in a Waffle House. The group of waitresses who worked there had become pretty close over the years. One of their regular customers started tipping them with lottery tickets. On one condition, they'd split the prize money if they won, and also buy him a new truck. They never thought they'd win, but they were wrong. One of the waitresses checked her ticket the next day and realized it was worth $10 million. There was just one problem. Tonda was the holder of the winning ticket, and she decided she didn't want to share. Obviously, the other waitresses were pretty unhappy about that. Not only had they lost out on all their money, but they'd also been betrayed by someone they thought was their friend. So, they got together and sued Tonda. Unfortunately, they lost the case, and Tonda got away with all the cash. By then, the customer who bought the ticket heard what she'd done. He couldn't believe she'd treat her friends that way and get away with it, so he tried to get some justice for the waitresses. He sued Tonda, saying the waitress had promised to buy him a new truck if they'd won. The case went all the way to Supreme Court, but Tonda eventually won again. She'd nearly got away with it, but then she slipped up. Tonda decided to protect her money by opening a corporation. That would have been safe, except then she gifted shares of the corporation to her family. That was a big mistake, because she didn't realize those shares qualified for gift tax. The IRS came after her when they'd realized the tax hadn't been paid, and she was forced to hand over $1 million. So none of her friends got to share the money, but at least she had to pay something. At least Tonda tried to hang on to her money. That's the only good thing you can say about her. The next person on our list had a different idea. Number 28. Sharon Tirabassi. Sharon Tirabassi won $10.5 million in a Lotto Super 7 jackpot in Canada in 2004. Excessive spending and giving her life an over-the-top makeover in the years after she won drained the money quickly. Assuming the money was bottomless, the vacations, cars, houses, and handouts piled up until there was nothing left. By 2013, she was riding a bus to the part-time job she worked to support her children because all her winnings were gone by then. You'd think, as a mom, she would have had better priorities. Think that's a weird way for a parent to behave? Just wait until you hear about the next winners on this list. Number 27. Laura and Roger Griffiths. The marriage of Laura and Roger Griffiths ended in divorce less than a decade after the British couple won a $2.19 million lottery jackpot. Roger pursued his rock star dreams by spending large sums of money to have his band release an album. Laura became familiar with the high life after the couple purchased exotic cars, a $1 million home, designer clothes and accessories, and a costly private school for their daughter. They invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in opening a salon, where Laura was later forced to work as an employee just to make ends meet. In the end, the couple had less than $10 in a shattered relationship. When we said you gotta follow your dreams, that's not what we meant. The winner coming up already had his dreams come true, and he still blew it. Number 26, Daniel Carley. Canadian Daniel Carley got the surprise of a lifetime one day when he scratched off his Ontario lottery ticket and realized he'd actually won. And it wasn't just a little bit either. His jackpot was 5 million Canadian dollars, or about 4.4 million in US money. It's gotta feel incredible. His life was pretty much perfect now. He was engaged to the mother of his unborn child, surrounded by friends and family, and in the prime of his life. That night, he went over to the bar he co-owned with his dad to celebrate his win with friends. There's no better way to celebrate than with a huge party, but even though the night ended, the party didn't stop for Daniel. He kept it going for a decade. He estimates he spent a mind-blowing $1 million on drugs over the next few years. When he ran out of cash, he again figured drugs were the answer. So he started trafficking narcotics. He was eventually caught and spent a few years in prison for it. You know things have gone wrong when prison time turns out to be a good thing. Still, it could have been worse. Just ask the next winner. Number 25, Alex Toth. Alex Toth won $13 million in the Florida lottery in 1990. He lived well for a few years, then went broke by spending all the money and not investing correctly. After he went broke, he split up with his wife. He got in trouble for filing false tax returns and spent some time in a mental institution. He died penniless at age 60 in 2008. Some people learn the hard way that money's not so easy to manage. The next winner on our list summed that up nicely. Number 24, Ken Proxmire. You know how people always say you should choose annuity payments to avoid going broke? It doesn't always help. Ken Proxmire won his $1 million jackpot thanks to the Michigan State Lottery, and that really was a lot of cash back in 1977. He chose the annuity option, which guaranteed him $50 grand per year for 14 years. That was a lot of cash back then, but not quite as much as Ken thought it was. He started spending like it was going out of style. He bought houses, businesses, cars, and he was even picking up the tab whenever he went out with friends. But it didn't take long for his investments to start collapsing. Soon, his pool parlor was $60,000 in debt, which makes that $50,000 annual payout look like small change. His advice to future lottery winners? Crawl into a hole and pull the top in. I don't think that's what I wanted to hear. If full-grown adults can ruin their chances like that, what happens when a teenager wins the lottery? Let's ask number 23, Collie Rogers. Back in 2003, Collie Rogers was living in a foster care and working at a supermarket. Then, she suddenly made headlines when she became the world's youngest ever lottery winner. She was only 16 at the time, but she now had an incredible $2.3 million in the bank. The British teen totally changed her life with that money. Sadly, not in a good way. She started spending it on crazy stuff, with no role models to help her make good decisions. She also developed a drug habit, and her strange lifestyle meant she became depressed. That led her to spend tons of cash on plastic surgery in the hopes of feeling a little better about herself, but it didn't help. She said the money made her feel like nobody cared about her because she would buy drinks for people in bars who were only talking to her so they can get a story they can sell to the tabloids. She lost every cent she'd won in the end, and now campaigns to try to change the minimum age for lottery players. Obviously, Callie isn't the most famous teenage lottery winner. That prize goes to number 22, Michael Carroll. At the tender age of just 19, British teen Michael Carroll won the lottery. He collected the $14 million with a police ankle bracelet still around his leg. That probably gives you a good idea of what happened next. He spent wildly, buying a mansion he didn't like and spending even more on fixing it up. He built a demolition derby racetrack in the back garden where he'd destroy luxury cars. He even started the day with narcotics and vodka for breakfast. And he spent millions on sex parties in the mansion, even though he had a wife and child. Soon, his family and friends had left him because he was behaving so badly. Luckily for him, when he went broke, his wife decided to take pity on him, and she came back, considering he said he'd be dead by now if he still had the money. Do you think this is just bad luck? Well, the next person won on Friday the 13th, so he might have the answer. Number 21. Lou Eisenberg. Lou Eisenberg became New York's luckiest man when he landed the $5 million jackpot back in 1981. At the time, it was the largest lottery payout ever in the state of New York. His life should have been perfect after that, but maybe winning on Friday the 13th cursed his new fortune, because it definitely didn't help out much. Instead of making clever investments or following a dream, Lou gambled away most of his cash. The rest went to paying off his ex-wives, and that was all that Lou's fortune gave him. Last anyone checked, he was living in a mobile home. Maybe it wasn't the curse of Friday the 13th that got to him. It might just be old-fashioned stupidity. Okay, so maybe it's not bad luck. After all, some people can lose it all and still come back. Like number 20, Curtis Sharp. Curtis Sharp won $5 million in the New York lottery in 1982. Unfortunately, his story was one of the rags to riches and back again. From trips to the casino, reckless spending on sports cars, and lavishing gifts on friends and relatives, Curtis saw his fortune disappear. Fast forward to today, Curtis is a minister in Tennessee. According to him, other winners should walk away and clear their heads before spending any of their winnings. That's a pretty positive story, considering he lost his winnings. So, we've made sure the next story on our list is one of the worst. Number 19. William Post. William Bud Post III won $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery in 1988. He thought his problems were solved, but it wasn't long before he'd blown it. Even though William didn't have a pilot's license, he decided to purchase a plane. He tried to help his siblings start a restaurant and a used car business. His former girlfriend, who was also his landlady, sued him for a third of his winnings. He didn't pay her, so a judge froze his assets. The relationships with his family members also went sour. William even claims one of his brothers tried to hire an assassin to kill him. It doesn't get much worse than that. One day, a repo man tried to take William's car away. Stupidly, when William saw him, he opened fire. You won't be surprised to hear he ended up in jail for it. In the end, he lived off Social Security disability payments until he died at age 66. Some people just don't know how to grab an opportunity. Just ask number 18, John Roberts. John Roberts was living in government housing in Scotland in 1998 when he suddenly won a huge jackpot. He suddenly had 3.1 million British pounds in the bank, or about $5.1 million. That's an incredible amount of money for anyone, but it's even more if you've never had any money. Just imagine what he could have done with it. And when I say imagine, I mean it, because he didn't do anything except spend it all. He blew his fortune on supercars and giant mansions. After a couple people he thought were his friends stole his cash by lying about investments, he had nothing left. It only took him 3 years before he was living in an old mobile home. Sure, his friends took off with the last of his cash, but he didn't really try to do anything good with it. The next person kinda did, just in the dumbest way possible. Number 17. Lisa Arkand. Lisa was the winner of a $1 million lottery prize in Massachusetts in 2004. She, like previous winners, purchased a home and took multiple vacations. She threw an extravagant dinner for 20 of her friends and family, ordering multiple bottles of wine for $200 each. She put her son in a fancy school and bought expensive furniture for her home. Lisa decided to open a restaurant as a source of income after realizing that $1 million didn't go very far after taxes. Lisa had no prior restaurant or financial management experience. Sadly, the restaurant didn't perform well, and she was forced to close it. Lisa's money was gone by 2007, barely 3 years after she won the lottery. They say stick to what you know, and Lisa proves that's true. The next person on the list stuck to her ideas a little too much though. Number 16. Janet Lee. South Korean immigrant Janet Lee won $18 million in the Illinois lottery in 1993. 8 years later, when she filed for bankruptcy, she had less than $700 in the bank. and $2.5 million in debt. Her donations were well-intentioned, but she simply gave too much. She donated considerable sums to educational, political, and social causes. But it wasn't just donations to charity that ate through her winnings, although her gambling habit reportedly cost her more than $300,000 per year. Still, she did more on charitable and political donations. Her generosity included $1 million for Washington University to build a new library. In 2001, her fortune had evaporated, but at least some other people benefited from it. It's good to be generous, but maybe not that much. The next winner was generous too, except it was a total accident. Number 15. John McGinnis. John McGinnis learned the hard way that following your heart isn't always the best idea. The UK man won a huge UK National Lottery jackpot in 1997, taking home 10 million British pounds, or $16.3 million. And he knew exactly what he wanted to do with that cash. He quit his job as a hospital porter and bought his favorite football club for $4.9 million. Unfortunately, he didn't know that buying the club meant he'd be responsible for all their debts, and they sure owed a lot of cash. By 2009, just 12 years later, the club's debts had wiped out his winnings, and he was scraping coins together to buy groceries. If you learned anything from that story, it's that you should always do your research. Another lesson for lottery winners is to never trust anyone. Just ask number 14, Marva Wilson. Marva Wilson won $2 million in the Missouri Lottery in 2012. It's not easy to manage that kind of money. Luckily, Freya Pearson, a good friend, agreed to help Marva manage her money and do all her taxes. But she was lying. She duped Marva into signing over $400,000 of her winnings and depositing them into a bank account set up by Pearson, as well as giving her access to Wilson's other bank account. Pearson went on a spending binge, traveling, gambling, and purchasing cars and an apartment with Marva's money. Thankfully, she was eventually caught. Pearson was convicted and given a 5-year sentence on account of fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering, but it was too late to recover the funds. Pearson had squandered all of Wilson's money in less than 2 years. It's always sad when a lottery winner has their cash stolen, but what about when lottery winners are stealing cash from others? Number 13. James Hayes. James Hayes worked as an overnight security guard in 1998 when he won $19 million playing California's Super Lotto game. But he quickly went from winner to loser. His ex-wife reportedly took half the jackpot money, and James developed a heroin habit, costing him $1,000 a week. He then resorted to robbing banks to keep up his lifestyle. The FBI nicknamed him the PT Cruiser Bandit and the Season Bandit because of his car and gray hair. In 2018, James pleaded guilty to bank robbery and was sentenced to 33 months in prison. Of course, by that time, there was not $1 left of his winnings. After you hear the next story on our list, you're gonna feel like the banks totally deserved what James did, even if, legally, we disagree with that idea. Number 12. Francisco Guerrero. You've got to be really careful who you trust when winning a big jackpot. Francisco Guerrero was a bricklayer in Spain. He didn't have much money, but he was happy. And he even worked hard enough to buy a few properties. But he became a multi-millionaire overnight when he won the equivalent of $8.6 million. He'd never seen that much money in his life, so instead of trying to work out what to do with it, he took it to the bank. He took the bank's advice and put 40% of the money into savings for his 4 children, and the rest was invested. The bank told him his money would be safe, and the investment carried no risks, but would earn him 17% every year. Sounds good, right? Francisco never touched a cent of his new fortune and chose to keep working instead. He didn't think about the money again until he injured his knee. He went to the bank to withdraw a small sum for the surgery he needed, but they told him there was no money in his account. The bank had lost every single dollar Francisco won on the terrible investment they recommended. But it was even worse than he thought. The investment had racked up an amazing amount of debt. Not only had he lost his winnings, but he now owed so much money, but he'd also lost the properties he'd bought with his hard-earned cash. The courts have ordered the bank to pay back some of the money, but it's not even close to what Francisco had before. That might be the most tragic story of any lottery winner ever. It might even be more tragic than murder, but we'll let you decide. Number 11. Joseph and Ibi Ranacaioli. Canadian residents Joseph and E.B. Ronicaioli were already pretty wealthy when E.B. won $5 million in a 1991 lottery. They were known as a happy elderly couple to their neighbors. However, their supposed comfortable lifestyle changed when Joseph discovered E.B. had spent all of their life savings due to her addictions to alcohol and gambling. If that wasn't bad enough, she refused to share her lottery winnings with him. But he discovered she gave away the $5 million to a secret son she had with another man before marrying Joseph. A few short years later, E.B. was found unconscious in her home. An autopsy showed that she had been poisoned. Joseph, who was a doctor, claimed he was checking her blood due to her poor health, but prosecutors saw through his lies and sentenced him to 7 years. It's a pretty tragic ending to what could have been a great life. That could have almost been a Netflix show with all those twists and turns. But the next winner on our list wasn't far off. Number 10, David Lee Edwards. 5 years after David Lee Edwards, a resident of Kentucky, won a jackpot, he was penniless and had to live in a storage shed with his wife. He married a woman 19 years younger than he was. The couple squandered the fortune on luxury items. They bought dozens of high-end cars, a big mansion, and a plane. In the first 3 months, they had blown through $3 million. By the end of the first year, they had burned more than $12 million. The couple later spiraled into drug addiction. In just 12 years after hitting the jackpot that changed their lives, their house was lost to foreclosure. David died in 2013, completely broke at age 58 in a hospice care facility. A few years later, his wife was arrested for stabbing a boyfriend. It's the perfect example of the lottery curse. That's sadly a familiar story with lottery winners. The next winner on our list didn't go near drugs, but still got himself on the wrong side of the law. Number 9, Lawrence Candlish. Lawrence Candlish didn't just blow through his millions. He actually got himself in trouble with the law in a different country too. He won a huge UK National Lottery jackpot back in 1997. And I mean huge. He was worth about $9 million. That's a lot of money to burn. But Lawrence had a talent for losing money. He started by spending it on sports cars and houses for himself and his friends. Then, he moved to Spain and put more of his cash into some dodgy investments. But that wasn't his biggest mistake. While living it up in Spain, he was getting into trouble in a country he wasn't even in by continuing to collect social benefits from the UK. In case you don't know, those benefits are available to people without a job or money to make sure they can still eat. They definitely aren't meant to be collected by multi-millionaires. Lawrence was eventually caught and received a suspended sentence for benefits fraud. At least he deserved what he got. The next winner on our list sure didn't. Number 8, Aruj Khan. Aruj Khan founded a dry cleaning business in Chicago after immigrating to the United States from India in 1989. He worked hard to create a good life for his family. Years later, he bought a lottery ticket and was shocked to discover he'd won $1 million. He chose the lump sum, which came to $424,000 after taxes. He told the world he wanted to use it to expand his business so his kids would have something big to inherit. However, he never saw a dime. He died before he could collect his check. His brother was the first to know after he got a mysterious call that Aruj was having a heart attack. His assets became embroiled in a battle between his wife and stepdaughter. His brother convinced the police his brother had been murdered for his lottery money. And sure enough, an autopsy showed evidence of the deadly substance cyanide in his blood. Aruj's death was declared a murder, but police still haven't caught his killer. It wasn't even a giant Powerball ticket. The next person on our list will tell you $500,000 isn't as much as you think. Number 7, Peter Kyle. Former soldier Peter Kyle became one of the biggest jackpot winners the UK had ever seen back in 2005. He'd played the same numbers he'd been choosing for years and was the only winner of a jackpot worth $9.8 million. And if that wasn't enough, he went out to play bingo with his friends to celebrate and won an extra 500 British pounds as a bonus. But just 3 years later, He was living off benefits and staying in a room for $18 per night. So what happened to the millions? There's a simple answer. He spent it. Yes, all of it. A fishing boat kicked off the spending spree, but soon there were luxury cars and 5-bedroom mansions being added to his expenses. He was spending a whopping $5,500 per day. After that, it only took 1 or 2 bad investments to end his life as a rich person. When he won, he said in an interview, "Everything I see, I can afford." Looks like he was wrong. The next person on our list won 3 times as much as Peter, so did his money go any further? Number 6, Billy Bob Harrell Jr. Billy Bob Harrell Jr. is a well-known victim of the lottery curse. He hit the Texas lottery jackpot in 1997, but burned through his $31 million in just 2 years. The profoundly religious family donated heavily to their church and individual congregation members, but his expenses and spending were not all donations. He and his wife bought a couple of houses and expensive cars for themselves and their family members. They paid for costly trips to Hawaii and lived the most luxurious lifestyle possible. With his excessive spending, money quickly dried up. Soon after the money was gone, Billy's marriage fell apart. The divorce was too much for Billy to handle, and only 2 years after winning more than $31 million, his son found him dead. Tragically, he had taken his own life. Billy's story is surprising because his life seems so perfect, but the next person on our list was on the wrong path from the start. Number 5. Lee Ryan. Loads of lottery winners end up in trouble with the law eventually, but this winner was facing a prison sentence before he won. Lee Ryan was awaiting trial for selling stolen cars in London when he found out he'd won £6.5 million, for about $7.8 million, but he couldn't enjoy it because he had to spend the next 18 months in prison. When he got out, I guess he figured life was for living because he went nuts with his new fortune. Obviously, he loved cars, but he should have been careful because they'd already landed him in prison. His first purchases were a Bentley, a BMW, a Porsche, and a Ferrari. Then, he needed a mansion to keep them in, so he bought a house worth $1.2 million. And pretty soon, he also had 2 Ducatis, a $150,000 private plane, and a $280,000 helicopter. You can see where this is going. He then split up with his girlfriend and moved to Kyrgyzstan with a different girl. It didn't last long. He lost his millions on a fish farm when he got on the wrong side of the mafia and had to come back to London with only a sleeping bag. He spent 2 years sleeping on the streets, but these days he's working as a cameraman and seems to be doing alright. But he's sure not a millionaire anymore. In a way, that story somehow ended better than it started. We can't say the same about our next winner. Number 4. Willie Hurt. Willie Hurt was a happily married family man who was well known in his neighborhood before he won the lottery. In 1989, Hurt won the $3.1 million Michigan Super Lotto jackpot. This was during the height of the crack epidemic, and Hurt was deeply tangled in the mayhem. His winnings were used to fund a raging addiction. Soon after his win, Hurt divorced his wife, lost custody of his children, and lost his fortune. He went on a multi-day drug and alcohol frenzy with a woman who was found dead. He was charged with her murder, although it was likely the result of a drug overdose. Hurt's attorney claimed the money was spent on his rocky divorce and crack addiction. By 1991, just 2 years after winning, the $3.1 million was nothing more than a blurred memory. Sadly, broken families are common among lottery winners. Just ask number 3, Keith Goh. Keith Goh from England is another lottery winner who claimed his new fortune ruined his life. He was a happily married 58-year-old baker at the time of his win. His UK National Lottery jackpot was a rollover from the previous draw and just as big as you'd expect, £9 million, or about $17.3 million. Suddenly, he went from baking to driving fast cars, betting huge sums on racehorses, and spending his time in a private executive box at Aston Villa Football Club. But it wasn't all the spending that really got to him. It was the drinking. Soon, his alcohol problem got so bad that he and his wife split up. He said it broke his heart because they were so in love before he won. All they wanted to do was retire together. 5 years after his big win, the stress of being broke and losing his wife got to him, and he sadly died of a heart attack. You're probably wondering if things go differently for lottery winners who are already wealthy. They know how to handle that kind of cash, right? Let's ask number 2, Jack Whitaker. Andrew Jack Whitaker, unlike most of the winners, was already wealthy. His company was making contracts worth about $15 million a year. On Christmas morning in 2002, he won the largest jackpot ever awarded to a single Powerball ticket. It was a whopping $319.9 million. He chose the lump sum, which left him $113 million after taxes. However, Jack Whitaker's lottery winnings changed him more than the money he had earned through hard work. He gave some to good causes, like $15 million to build churches in West Virginia. Jack also set up a charitable foundation and even bought a new house for the woman who sold him the ticket. And he threw in a new car and gave her some extra cash too. Despite his good deeds, the lottery curse hit him. His company was hit with frivolous lawsuits from people who wanted to get their hands on some of the jackpot money, costing him millions in legal fees. Under strain, Whitaker started to go on a downward spiral. He started drinking hard and getting into fights. If this wasn't enough, his granddaughter, Brandy, got involved with the wrong people and died at a young age, a year after her boyfriend died from an overdose. The death had devastating consequences for his family. Andrew's daughter, Brandy's mother, was found dead 7 years after the jackpot was won. His wife filed for divorce, and soon Andrew had lost his family and all the money he had won. The last person on our list loved something too. He loved his cars, but they got him into serious trouble. Number 1, Ryan McGee. Ryan McGee from Ireland was once on the UK's rich list when he won a huge jackpot worth $12.7 million. His first purchase was a red Ferrari, followed by a luxury mansion, but it all went downhill when he crashed his Ferrari. When investigators discovered he was driving without insurance, his license was suspended. His car wasn't the only thing crashing. His business and marriage were joining in. When he was caught driving on a suspended license the next time, he was behind the wheel of a Ford Focus, and this time, he had to claim legal aid from the government to help him through the court case. It was discovered that he'd already put his luxury mansion up for sale and was flat broke. Let's look at the 20 biggest lottery jackpots of all time, who's won them, and how they're doing today. Starting with number 20, $533 million, 2018. Richard Wall is our first winner. He was a pretty normal guy, working as a supervisor for a food service plant in New Jersey. On March 30th, 2018, Wall had $22 in his pocket. He bought some gas and a Mega Millions ticket. When he found out he'd won the jackpot, he says he double-checked the numbers on his ticket 15 times to make sure. He thought he'd won $1 million, but he was wrong. He was the only winner of the $533 million jackpot. He did the sensible thing and took the lump sum payout. After he paid taxes, yeah, you have to pay taxes on your lottery winnings, he went home with about $175 million. So what'd he do with all that money? Well, he moved to Florida to live the relatively quiet life of a multi-millionaire. In 2019, he had a business idea. He bought a hotel on the Atlantic coast of Florida called La Playa Resort and Suites. It had been closed since Hurricane Matthew wrecked it in 2016, but Wall wanted to reopen it as a timeshare. So he bought the place, then 2020 happened. You might remember that the year 2020 wasn't the best year for vacations or construction projects. Whether COVID contributed or not, 3 years later, La Playa Resort and Suites are listed as permanently closed. If it never reopens, Wall might just be out $13+ million he bought it for, and anything he spent renovating it. One realtor estimated that could cost about $24 million. This kind of setback can ruin most people. With his winnings, Richard Wall can only afford to lose that much money 3 more times before he'd have a measly $25 million left. Number 19, $536 million, 2016. The next winner is a couple from Hamilton County, Indiana. On July 8, 2016, they were on a road trip with their 2 kids and bought 5 Mega Millions tickets at a gas station. Then, they forgot about it until almost a month later. When they found the tickets again, they checked the numbers and found out they'd won the jackpot, $536 million. Now these 2 wanted to keep living a normal life, except for all the money, and didn't want to mess things up for their kids. So they formed a limited liability corporation to claim the money for them, and that's why I can't tell you their names. That's going to be a pattern on this list. For every winner, the first question is whether they went public or stayed anonymous. Sometimes staying anonymous isn't an option, like with the crew who won the next jackpot. Number 18, $543 million, 2018. When the Mega Millions jackpot got over $500 million in 2018, Ronald Reyes decided he should play, and he got 10 other employees at the Wells Fargo where he worked to go in on it with him. The 11 of them each put in $2, and they hit the top prize of $543 million. Even split 11 ways, that's a nice chunk of change. And the guy who sold them the ticket got $1 million bonus too. Because they won in California, the 11 winners had to share their names, but they kept a low profile otherwise. Being one of 11 helps. They didn't even quit their jobs at Wells Fargo, at least not right away. But having to share your name with the public after winning the jackpot can cause you a lot of trouble, which is why our next winner really didn't want to do it. Number 17, $559.7 million, 2018. You see, the state lotto commissions really like to share the names of the people who win. It's good advertising, and it helps show that they're not cheating. But the whole world finding out you just got rich is an invitation for all kinds of trouble, from harassment to lawsuits to kidnapping. So when this Jane Doe in New Hampshire won the Powerball jackpot worth $559,700,000, she didn't want to share her name, even though state law said she had to. She sued the state to keep her privacy. The case went all the way to the New Hampshire Supreme Court, and she won. She got to white out her name on the winning ticket and write in Good Karma Family Trust of 2018. She took home a cool $264 million. Now our next winner didn't stay anonymous, and she didn't need publicity for trouble to find her. Number 16, $590.5 million, 2013. On May 18, 2013, an 84-year-old retired teacher named Gloria McKenzie was waiting in line to buy her Powerball ticket when someone cut in front of her. Or maybe she cut in front of them. She's told the story both ways. But Gloria took the quick pick. Whichever place in line she was, that was the right one. Her random numbers hit the $590.5 million jackpot. Naturally, the great-grandma took the lump sum. Unfortunately, a $278 million payout after taxes couldn't buy her a calm retirement. 6 years later, Mackenzie was suing her own son. She said the son had hired her a lousy financial manager. After hearing the guy's commercial on the radio, and not only did the guy do a terrible job of making the money grow, he helped himself to $2 million in fees. As of 2023, the lawsuit is still going on. Unfortunately, Mackenzie died in 2021. It's safe to say this was not what she probably hoped to leave to her kids. Our next jackpot leaves the $500 million range behind, and we start getting up into amounts of money that are just reality bending, even if you split them two ways. Number 15, $632 million, 2022. In January of 2022, it had been 3 months since anyone hit the Powerball jackpot, and it had grown to $632 million. Then, on January 5th, there were not one, but 2 winning tickets. The first winner came forward in Wisconsin. The ticket belonged to this nice Midwestern couple, Cliff and Tammy Webster. The Websters ended up taking home just shy of $140 million, and they seem to have stayed out of trouble since then. 4 whole months later, Orlando Zavala Lozano turned in the other winning ticket in California, and he's managed to stay out of the news too. Number 14, $648 million, 2013. Our next biggest jackpot win also splits 2 ways. The week before Christmas 2013, a Northern California delivery driver and a Georgia grandmother both hit the numbers for the $648 million Mega Millions prize. At the time, it was the second biggest jackpot in history. Ira Curry in Stone Mountain, Georgia, came forward first to collect her half. The other winner, Steve Tran, didn't know he'd won for more than 2 weeks. On his delivery runs, Steve bought lotto tickets all over, and he kept them in a pile in his bedroom. That's where his winning ticket stayed, while Steve took a vacation over the holidays. When he got home, Steve heard the winning ticket had been bought in San Jose. When he remembered he'd passed through there, he checked his ticket pile. Sure enough, there was the winner. He told his wife the good news, and then he told his boss that he wouldn't be coming in ever. Number 13, $656 million, 2012. When our last jackpot was the second biggest jackpot ever, this ticket was the record holder. On March 30th, 2012, the Mega Millions jackpot was up to $656 million, and there were 3 winning tickets. 2 of those 3 ticket holders wanted to keep their heads down. The first one was an anonymous winner in Kansas. The second was a trio of teachers in Maryland who called themselves the Three Amigos. The winners who went public were Merle and Patricia Butler of Red Bud, Illinois. Patricia said that she'd giggle for about 4 hours when she found out they'd won. The couple took their share, about $158 million, and bought a mansion in Florida. But they also held onto a house in Red Bud, and that's presumably where they live now, after they sold the mansion in 2012. Number 12, $687 million, 2018. 4 days before Halloween 2018, 2 ticket holders split a $687 million Powerball jackpot. The first winner lived in Redfield, Iowa. Loren West bought her winning ticket while she was out with her sister, and she left the ticket on the floor of her sister's pickup truck. Luckily, the ticket was still there when she went back for it. After she collected her half of the jackpot, West got some friendly publicity by going on the Ellen DeGeneres show to donate $500,000 to a charity for disabled veterans. The second winner was Robert Bailey from New York City. At the time, it was the largest jackpot ever won in the state of New York. Robert Bailey was a retired government worker who lived in Manhattan, where he'd bought his winning ticket at a deli. Bailey took home $125 million after taxes. He said he wanted to set things up for his family, but he didn't want his lifestyle to change much. In fact, he said he was going to keep playing the lottery. $699.8 million, 2021. Our next winner didn't have to share. At the start of October 2021, the Powerball jackpot was just a rounding error shy of $700 million. There were 5 tickets that matched the first 500 numbers, but only one matched the red Powerball number. That ticket belonged to Steve Godfrey, who bought his ticket in Morro Bay, California. It was the biggest jackpot ever won in California at the time, though there's one coming up that blows it away. Godfrey took a lump sum payment of $496 million before taxes. By the time the media caught up with him, he'd already set up a foundation to handle the money and do what he called deliberate charitable things. It sounds good, if a little vague. I can't help but wish him luck with all the deliberate charitable things he wants. Number 10, $731.1 million, 2021. At the beginning of the same year, a Powerball jackpot of $731 million was won by a mysterious, anonymous group that called themselves the Power Pack. Whoever they are, the Power Pack bought their ticket in Lonaconing, a depressed former coal town of just 1,200 people in western Maryland. Things got a little hairy in Lonaconing because everyone suddenly wanted to know who in that little town was suddenly rich and if they'd maybe share some money. One family, the Winnebrenners, was a popular suspect. They wrote a letter to the local paper saying they weren't the winners, and even the mayor of the town said he knew Mr. Winebrenner hadn't bought the ticket. But that didn't stop people from harassing them for money. The Power Pack knows who they are, but they're keeping their mouths shut. Number 9, $754.6 million, 2023. Becky Bell worked for Boeing, the airplane company, in Washington State. In February 2023, she was buying a Powerball ticket at the grocery store when she saw the jackpot had gotten up to $747 million. Like the Boeing 747, she decided she had a lucky feeling, so she bought 2 tickets. The jackpot ultimately went up to $754.6 million. But that change didn't spoil her luck. Becky Bell won the biggest jackpot ever seen in Washington State, and she took home a lump sum of $407,200,000 before taxes. Number 8. $758.7 million, 2017. Here's another jackpot that was the biggest ever at the time. We're getting close to the first jackpot to break $1 billion. I can feel it, but not yet. $758.7 million is nothing to sneeze at, though. In fact, it's pretty exciting. Mavis Wanchik didn't have any chill about winning it. Even though you're allowed to take your time getting things ready before you cash in your ticket, this 53-year-old Massachusetts nurse turned in her ticket the next day. By the end of the day, she'd already retired. You don't have to jump in with both feet like that. In fact, it's smarter not to. But I hope she's enjoying her retirement. Is our next winner the one who hits the big B? Number 7. $768.4 million, 2019. The Powerball jackpot for March 27, 2019 exceeded Mavis Wanchik's record by a whopping $9.7 million for a total jackpot of $768,400,000. The winning ticket belonged to Manuel Franco, a 24-year-old from Wisconsin. Like a lot of 24-year-olds, Franco had less than $1,000 in the bank. This wasn't going to be a problem anymore. He took the cash payout for $477 million pre-tax. Unfortunately, after he came out publicly as the winner, he had to start hiding from the media and people trying to get money out of him. What's he up to now? Celebrating his 28th birthday, probably. Bet it's a better party than I had. So that's the 4th jackpot in the 700 million range. Okay, I don't know. At this rate, are we even going to get to $1 billion? Number 6. $1.05 billion, 2021. Yes, we are. Finally, the Mega Millions jackpot for January 22nd, 2021 broke out of the millions for an awesome $1,005 million. And the winner in Michigan was a group of 4 anonymous folks called the Wolverine FLL Club. Since we don't know anything about them, I like to imagine the club is an actual family of Wolverines. But these suddenly wealthy Wolverines were smart enough to hire a human attorney to represent them. Since Wolverines only live about 15 years in captivity, it made sense for them to take the one-time cash payout instead of a 30-year annuity. After taxes, that came to $557 million. Split 4 ways, that's $139 million per Wolverine, which should keep them all in high-end beavers, rabbits, voles, and insect larvae until the end of their days. Though their lawyer also said the club would be giving to charity around Southeast Michigan. Don't let it be said that Wolverines are always bad-tempered. Number 5. $1.34 billion, 2022. As we get into the higher jackpots, we're also getting more recent years. And recently, people have been more aware of how important it is to protect your anonymity when you win, especially when you make the big news jackpots over $1 billion. And with that kind of money, you can afford to take your time, hire lawyers, and do it right. That's why our next few winners went the same route as the Wolverine FLL Club, but with less fun names. They set things up to take their winnings anonymously, so they could enjoy their multi-millions out of the spotlight. On July 29, 2022, the Mega Millions Lotto had gone 29 drawings without a jackpot winner. That brought the top prize to $1,340 million. That's the round when in a gas station just north of Chicago, someone bought the winning ticket. It was a good while before anyone knew who it was. In Illinois, lottery winners only have 6 days to claim their prize, and it was 54 days before the winners came forward to turn in their ticket. The anonymous pair had spent time talking to lawyers and financial advisors, and generally getting their ducks in a row. They took home a lump sum of $780.5 million pre-tax, and that's all we know. Number 4. $1.348 billion, 2023. Our next winner is even more of a mystery. The Mega Millions jackpot for January 13th, 2023 just edges past our last one at $1,348 million. Someone bought the ticket in Lebanon, Maine, but the prize was claimed by a limited liability corporation called Lacoma Island Investments. They took a cash payout of $723 million. And I guess they invested it. You may be wondering if that name, Lacoma Island Investments, is a clue to who the winners are or where they live. But there's no such place as Lacoma Island. So if you figured that one out, you're smarter than me. Number 3, $1.537 billion, 2018. We all know a little more about the next winner, though we still don't know their name. As of the drawing of October 23, 2018, this was the biggest jackpot ever won on a single ticket. 5 years later, there's only been one bigger, our number 1 entry. This time, the Mega Millions jackpot has gotten up to $1,537 million. The winner bought their ticket in Simpsonville, South Carolina. She stayed anonymous, but took home a pre-tax lump sum of $878 million. She used that right away to donate to some charities, and she let the media know which ones. She donated to a hurricane relief fund in South Carolina and the Red Cross Relief Fund for tornadoes that had just happened in Alabama. About 100 miles away in Columbia, South Carolina, she gave money to a breast cancer charity and the Ronald McDonald House. The City of Simpsonville Arts Center got a nice donation too. Number 2, $1.586 billion, 2016. Our second biggest jackpot was the Powerball back on January 16, 2016. It weighed in at $1,586 million. You might notice that's more than some of the record-breaking payouts I've mentioned already. That's because, even though this jackpot was far and away the biggest ever in 2016, there were 3 winning tickets, so the payout split 3 ways. So the jackpot for each was $528 million, which doesn't sound like much this high up on the list, but let's not lose perspective. Oh, who am I kidding? I've been talking about lottery winners for 15 minutes straight. My perspective is completely shot. But still, 3 ticket holders took home $500 million, and this time, none of them stayed anonymous. In fact, the first ones to come forward were John and Lisa Robinson of Munford, Tennessee, and they announced their win on the Today Show. It's no surprise that they ended up getting more attention than they wanted. With a lump sum payment of $327 million, the Robinsons were probably going to move into a mansion anyway. But this got more necessary when people kept trespassing on their property in Munford. They live in a house on a lake now, and they've kept pretty quiet. The next winners to come forward for their share of the $1.5 billion jackpot were Maureen Smith and David Kaltschmidt from Florida. Like a lot of Floridians, these two have lived most of their lives in Long Island, New York. It seems like taking home $250 million didn't change too much for Maureen and David. They didn't buy a mansion or do much else extravagant. They did buy a Tesla for $90,000. Remember, this was 2016, before Teslas were, in the news quite often. The third set of winners were Californians Marvin and May Acosta, and they kept everyone waiting. Because California law makes lotto winners reveal their identities, but it doesn't make them hurry. The Acostas kept their heads down for 6 whole months while they put together a legal and financial team to handle their share of the winnings. They continued to keep their heads down even after they claimed their payout of $265 million after they claimed their payout of $265 million after taxes. They bought a bigger house, but not too much bigger. Only 5 bedrooms and $500,000, if reports are to be believed. In the end, all 3 sets of winners were pretty careful and didn't do anything too wild. They all got a part of the biggest jackpot ever, until recently. But split 3 ways, it was only enough to bring them into the ranks of the mildly obscenely wealthy. But what if the winner didn't have to share? Someone got our number 1 jackpot all to themselves, as long as they can hold on to it. But we'll get to that. Number 1, $2.04 billion, 2023.
Edwin Castro hit it big with a $2 billion Powerball win, making him the biggest lottery winner ever. And boy, did he start spending fast. From a jaw-dropping mansion in Bel Air, complete with an infinity pool and champagne tasting room, to a fleet of luxury cars like the $500,000 Porsche 911 GT2 RS and vintage Porsches from the 70s, Castro's life is now all about luxury. Let's see how the luckiest lottery winner can blow $2 billion in one crazy shopping spree. First off, Edwin didn't just buy a house. He bought a $47 million palace in Bel Air. Yep, you heard that right. 47 mil. And this isn't your run-of-the-mill mansion. It's got 7 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, because, one for each day of the week plus extras, a koi pond, and an infinity pool that screams, "Look at me, I'm filthy rich." And that's just scratching the surface. He also snagged a $25.5 million mansion in the Hollywood Hills, rubbing elbows with celebrities like Ariana Grande and Dakota Johnson. But he's also a generous guy. To top it all off, he gifted his parents a $4 million Japanese-style mansion in Altadena. It's like Oprah's "you get a car" moment, but on steroids. You get a mansion, and you get a mansion. If you think his house-buying spree was over the top, wait till you hear about his cars. Edwin's garage is a vintage car lover's wet dream. He's got a Porsche 911 GT2 RS, a Porsche 911 Turbo Coupe, and a 1970s green Porsche 356. And those are just the highlights. He's also got a white Porsche 911 from the 80s, a gray Ram 1500 TRX, and 3 Volkswagen Carmen Gias. It's like he's collecting cars the way some people collect stamps, if stamps cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each. But hey, why stop at houses and cars when you can throw in some bespoke luxury items? Rumor has it Edwin's been spending on custom-made gadgets and art pieces. Because when you've got more money than you know what to do with, why not commission a one-of-a-kind gizmo that does, whatever you want it to do? Edwin's got all this fancy stuff, and he's dead serious about keeping it safe. Think of it like this. His security setup is more intense than a bouncer at an exclusive nightclub. We're talking top-level guards patrolling his place day and night. And move aside Paul Blart, these aren't your average mall cops. They're like action heroes, always ready to jump into the fray. A standout feature of Edwin's Bel Air estate is the infinity pool with stunning views of the LA skyline. Perfect for relaxing or throwing extravagant parties, it's the epitome of high roller living. The house itself is a blend of indoor and outdoor spaces, with plush interiors merging seamlessly with vast outdoor living areas. Inside, it's a wonderland of luxury, a champagne tasting room, state-of-the-art theater, and a dramatic suspended glass walkway. Each bedroom is a cozy retreat within this grand mansion, with walk-in closets and comfortable sitting areas. His whole property is like Fort Knox, but with a tech twist. Cameras are everywhere, like eyes in the sky watching every move. And it's not just for show. These cameras are hooked up to the latest tech. If someone so much as steps onto the lawn, Edwin knows. Got a doorbell? Of course he does, but it's a video doorbell, so he can see and talk to whoever's there, even if he's chilling on a beach somewhere. The alarms are no joke either. They'll go off at the slightest hint of trouble, and they're loud enough to wake the dead. Plus, these alarms don't care if the power goes out. There's a backup system that keeps everything running smooth. Edwin's place stays locked down no matter what. And his security team? These guys are like Navy SEALs. They train constantly, running through all sorts of scenarios. Found a suspicious package? They know what to do. Someone tries to sneak in? They're on it. They even practice CPR, just in case. It's like having a superhero squad at your beck and call.
Assemble.
Getting into Edwin's place is tougher than breaking into a bank vault. Steel-reinforced doors, biometric scanners, you name it. No one's getting in without permission. And even if they make it past the first line of defense, there's another and another. It's like peeling an onion, and every layer makes it harder. And then there's the smart home tech. Edwin's got it all connected to his phone. He can lock the doors, adjust the thermostat, and even mess with the lights from anywhere. It's like he's got the whole place in the palm of his hand.
Nice.
Now, the luckiest man on Earth, fresh off his ridiculous $2.04 billion Powerball win, decides to toss $156.3 mil towards California's schools. A nice gesture, but let's not get too sentimental. When you're rolling in billions, dropping a chunk of change on education is like tossing a bone to a dog and expecting a parade in return. Is being hailed as a grand act of philanthropy, but let's put it into perspective. He's got a nearly $1 billion lump sum sitting pretty in his bank account. Giving away $156.3 mil is like a billionaire tipping the pizza guy with a $100 bill. It's generous, sure, but hardly life-altering for them. Now, the California lottery folks are all excited, acting like this is some game changer for the school system. They proudly announced that 80 cents of every $2 ticket goes to public education, which sounds great until you remember the astronomical budget these schools actually need. The truth? Castro's donation is a splash in the ocean, a tiny boost to a system that's always begging for more. And then there's the whole real winner spiel. Castro, in his statement, insists the real winner is the California public education system. Really, Edwin? The same system that's been scraping by on pennies and duct tape? Sure, they'll take the cash, but let's not pretend this fixes everything. It's like giving a Band-Aid to someone with a broken leg and calling it a miracle cure.
Lord, it's a miracle!
Joseph Chayayed, the guy who sold the winning ticket, snagged a $1 million bonus. Good for him, seriously. He plans to share it with his family, which is heartwarming, but it's still just a footnote in this whole lottery circus. And just wait until you hear this. Edwin Castro's been making headlines not just for his newfound wealth, but for his romantic escapades too. Meet Peyton Vincent, the latest in his line of romantic interest. Peyton is a writer and model who seems to enjoy the spotlight just as much as Edwin enjoys spending his fortune. Their relationship is the kinda juicy material tabloids dream of. Seriously, it's like watching an episode of The Bachelor, but instead of roses, they're handing out bundles of cash. The two were first spotted together at a swanky Giorgio Armani event in Malibu, all smiles and public displays of affection. I mean, Edwin had his hand on Peyton's knee, and the paparazzi were eating it up. They were also seen having a cozy breakfast in Malibu after a night out at Nobu in Los Angeles. These two are like a reality TV show waiting to happen. Now, let's talk about Peyton. She's 24, has a decent following on Instagram, and loves to flaunt her connections with big names like Kanye West and Diplo. She's got the whole social media influencer vibe down to a T. Before hitting the jackpot with Edwin, she was a barista and a bank teller. Quite the upgrade, huh? From pouring coffee to living it up in Hollywood Hills, her transformation is nothing short of dramatic. But being loaded isn't all it's cracked up to be. Edwin's got to deal with the mental strain of managing his newfound fortune. Think about it. He's got to keep an eye on every penny, or rather every million, and worry about scams, lawsuits, and people trying to mooch off him. It's enough to drive anyone up the wall. And don't even get me started on the constant media scrutiny. Every move he makes is watched and judged, like he's living in a fishbowl. Keeping all those luxury toys in tip-top shape isn't cheap or easy. His sports cars need constant care from specialists who know their stuff. His mansions require a small army of staff to maintain. Gardeners, pool cleaners, IT geeks for the smart home systems, you name it. It's a full-time job just keeping everything running smoothly, and it costs a fortune. Living with this kind of wealth means living under constant pressure. Every decision Edwin makes could mean millions gained or lost. A single security slip-up could put him and his family at risk. It's like walking a tightrope with the whole world watching. And for those who inherit this kind of money, the learning curve is steep. They've got to figure out the ins and outs of managing a financial empire, all while keeping up appearances. And then there's the public eye. Society loves to put wealthy people under a microscope. Every move they make is dissected and discussed.
Remember that $1.2 billion Powerball winner?
It's like being on a reality show 24/7 with no break. They've got to balance a normal life with the need for security and privacy, and it's no easy feat. Kids growing up in this environment face their own set of challenges. Navigating friendships where their family's wealth is always a factor. Despite the over-the-top lifestyle, Edwin tries to keep it real with his philanthropic efforts. Donating to the education system that helped shape him shows he hasn't completely lost touch with his roots. But it's hard not to be a bit cynical. When you've got billions, throwing a few million towards charity is more about good PR than genuine sacrifice.
It's no secret that being a lottery winner opens doors to a world of endless possibilities.
I won.
But what about the first purchases of the fortunate winners in the past? In this video, we'll delve into the fascinating world of lottery winners' most major first purchases. Wow. And explore what they reveal about the human psyche and our deepest desires.
Money, please!
Here are the 15 most unique and exciting biggest first purchases of lucky lottery winners that would make you drool. Stick until the end of the video to learn about the most mind-blowing purchases ever made by a lottery winner. Without further ado, let's dive in.
And here we go.
Number 15. Purchase a water park. Get this. After winning a massive jackpot of $319 million in the Mega Millions in 2011, John Couttet and his wife Linda decided to do something incredibly selfless with their fortune. They donated a chunk of it towards building a water park, Spray Park, in honor of their beloved parents, Edmund Ostrowski and the late Gertrude Ostrowski, and Joseph and Mercedes Couttet. These down-to-earth souls forked over a generous $200,000 to construct the Oasis in Green Island, New York. John Couttet was one of the 7 employees at the New York State Homes and Community Renewal who won a $319 million Mega Millions jackpot, and his share was $28.7 million. The Coutets came to the Village Hall after winning the drawing to ask how they could help their hometown, leading to the installation of the spray pool. The Coutets live in Florida, but visited their hometown to partake in the Spray Park's dedication ceremony, leaving behind a refreshing and welcoming addition to the local community. And the best part? Taxpayers didn't have to spend a dime on the exciting new attraction. They made Green Island a lot cooler. That's what we call a heartwarming act of kindness that truly made a splash in their community.
We couldn't be happier, rain and all. As long as we don't get struck by lightning today, we're happy.
Number 14. World Tour. In 2014, Nigel Willits, a then 49-year-old pub owner, accidentally bought lottery tickets worth $20 and ended up winning big. The lucky winner said he was scared to give the winning ticket to the cashier and even made his sister double-check it.
Double check.
However, after confirming his win, he celebrated with a lock-in at his pub with his regulars. Nigel invested a minor amount in lottery tickets, and against all odds of 13 million to 1, he won around a staggering $1.25 million. With his grand fortune, he treated himself to extravagant holidays at stunning destinations like Mexico, Venice, and Dubai for around 62 grand. He purchased an elegant Range Rover Sport priced at $120,000 and a new home worth approximately $467,000. He even ventured into the property market and invested some $250 grand in 3 new residential properties. After paying off his mortgage, he treated 13 family members to a trip to Florida. He also invested in a trampoline center called Go Air and planned to expand his business across Europe. It really does change your life, Nigel said. The week before winning, he met Karen, his fiancée, whom he informed about his victory over the phone. Nigel later proposed to Karen in Venice, and they plan to get married the next year and go on a honeymoon in Seychelles. Number 13. Cruise to the Mediterranean. Meet Paul Hardware, a then 51-year-old chef from Cardiff who was facing redundancy when he won nearly $6.2 million in the lottery on the 18th of August 2007. Paul and his wife, Denise, had been playing for 14 years with no real luck, just a couple of tenners here and there. But when Paul got the news about his job, the couple decided to add an extra line of lucky dip numbers to their ticket. Lo and behold, they won big. Paul and Denise were so afraid of losing the winning numbers that they kept checking teletext over and over again until they finally got to confirm the news that they had won over $6.1 million. The couple quit their jobs and went on a dream cruise to the Mediterranean to let the news sink in. When they returned home, they paid off their mortgage and bought their dream home in Somerset. They also bought a second-hand car to replace their son Matthew's old beater, and even paid for his degree at Oxford Brookes University. With their newfound wealth, Paul and Denise have been able to set up savings accounts for their 3 grandchildren and buy properties for their family members. Life has certainly changed since their remarkable win, but they're grateful for the opportunity to spoil and be able to help those that they love. Number 12. Brand new kitchen. Matthew Evans from Barrie, a former postman, was in for a huge surprise when he discovered he won $3.2 million in the lottery in July 2015. Despite having the winning ticket for 3 whole days, he only found out about his prize after he went to buy another ticket for the following week, and the person at the counter informed him that he could not claim his prize money there and then. Upon hearing this, he realized he must have won a significant amount.
I won.
And rushed home to check his ticket with his parents. Sure enough, he had matching numbers, and his dad then secured the ticket away in a safe for safekeeping. The next day, he went for breakfast with his friends and told them the news. Who couldn't believe him?
You serious?
Matthew subsequently took a career break while he decided how to use the money. He purchased a new kitchen for his sister Michelle, who had 8 children, and a car for his dad. He went to the U.S. to catch an NFL game, Cyprus to watch Wales play football, and planned to attend the Wimbledon final with his mother and the Monaco Grand Prix with his father. Dreaming big, Matthew even said it was a worry that he would run out of ideas on what to do with the money. Number 11. Family Trust. Louise White, an 81-year-old from Newport, Rhode Island, became a multi-millionaire after winning $336.4 million in the Powerball lottery, making it the 3rd largest win in the game's history. White spoke briefly at the news conference announcing her win, thanking her lucky stars that her family will be well looked after.
And this will make my family very happy. We are truly blessed. Thank you.
She chose to take the lump sum payment of $210 million rather than the 30 annuity payments spread over 29 years. I want to say that I'm very happy and I'm very proud. This will make my family very happy, she said. We are truly blessed. Thank you. She intended to donate her winnings to the Rainbow Sherbet Trust, named after the dessert she purchased the previous month at Stop & Shop while buying the lottery ticket. White's family stored the winning ticket in her Bible until they were able to deposit it in a safe at the bank. The family kept checking and rechecking the numbers before fully accepting their good fortune. Number 10. Endless shopping spree. Let us tell you the tale of Vivian Nicholson, a lucky woman who struck gold back in 1961 by winning £152,300 in the British football pools. That's like winning a hefty $3.6 million in today's currency. So, how did she spend her newly acquired fortune? Vivian famously vowed to spend, spend, spend.
I've got to put that on the side. I've got the money. I can go out and buy what I want. And that's it. Who's bothered about anybody else? I'm not.
She threw money on beautiful dresses, hand-picked from Harrods, bought several fancy cars that could make any James Bond villain drool with envy, and jet-set it across the United States and Europe. Fast forward to 2007, she was living on a meager $109 a week and looking for a job at the ripe old age of 71. But don't let her financial woes fool you. Viv still loves her spiffing clothes and splurges on $90 bottles of perfume after her daily 2 baths.
Wow.
Despite her struggles, Viv remains a symbol of the consumer culture that exploded in the 60s and has now reached almost every corner of British society. She's had her fair share of ups and downs since her win, including widowhood, multiple marriages, a religious conversion, and even a stroke. But despite it all, she managed to keep her sense of humor and reinvents herself time and time again. With a successful West End musical based on her life, Viv would pass on her wisdom to the next generation of lottery winners. With her keen eye for fashion and her love for the finer things in life, Viv has plenty of tips for how to spend those millions. Fast forward to 2016, her closet was still bursting at the seams with high-end couture, but her wallet felt a bit light. Oh, how the tables have turned. Number 9. Second-hand Jaguar. It was an unforgettable start to the year for Francis and Patrick Connolly when they won a bulky $143 million on New Year's Day in 2019. Patrick bought a lucky dip online, and it turned out to be the jackpot winner. The Northern Irish grandparents hardly knew how to react when they discovered their incredible windfall. They had a cup of tea and went to bed before waking up the next morning to verify the win with Camelot.
Let us ride to Camelot!
They still couldn't believe it.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
In a press conference, they talked about how it hasn't really sunk in, even though Patrick checked the numbers on multiple websites. Frances expressed she wanted a second-hand car, preferably a Jaguar, while Patrick planned to spoil his wife with gifts. They also fancied a holiday to Mauritius, some trips to watch rugby matches, and an F1 Grand Prix. Their generosity, however, might be the most extraordinary thing of all. They spoke about wanting to use their novel wealth to assist their loved ones. What a way to start the year. Number 8. Luxury Flat. Ave Dawes and Angela Dawes are a lucky couple from Wisbech, Cambridgeshire, who hit the Euro Millions jackpot in October 2011. It was only their third time playing the lottery, and boy did it pay off. Dave, a shift supervisor for Premier Foods, and Angela, a volunteer for the British Heart Foundation, won an astonishing amount of money. This will come as a shocker. After sharing the wealth with their loved ones by giving $1.25 million each to around 20 close friends and relatives, they decided to treat themselves to a life of luxury. They first bought an exquisite flat in West London, only a short walk from Chelsea's Stamford Bridge ground. However, after a few years, they decided to sell it for $5.6 million and moved on to an even more luxurious 6-bedroom Grade 2 listed manor house in Etchingham, East Sussex, that Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck once owned. The sprawling manor house cost them a tremendous $4.9 million. The Dawes didn't let their fortune go to waste. They also set up a charity, got married, and treated themselves to some well-deserved sumptuous items, including a Rolls-Royce, exotic holidays, and designer clothes. However, not everyone was happy for the happy couple. In fact, Dave's son, Michael, sued him for support, but to no avail. Despite the ups and downs, the Dawes are living their best lives and enjoying every moment of their splendid fortune. Number 7. Expensive cars. In 2018, 51-year-old Andrew Clark, a self-employed builder from Boston, Lincolnshire, started looking for a mansion when he found out he was the owner of Britain's biggest ever unclaimed lottery ticket, making him an overnight millionaire. How did he discover his win? It all started with a habit of stockpiling tickets in his van. Andrew had accumulated a bundle of tickets, which he tucked away in the visor of his Pew Goat Expert. Little did he know, the bundle was worth a ginormous $95 million.
Damn!
But it was his partner's niece who kept reminding him to check his tickets, and he finally gave in. As he went through the tickets methodically, from the oldest to the most recent, he had realized he had won big. His initial reaction was to call his partner and tell her to start looking for a mansion. Andrew and his partner started spending their fortune immediately. They bought a new home with 2 cars, a Mercedes C63 AMG and a Nissan Qashqai. They also plan to use their wealth to help out their loved ones. It just goes to show that you never know what treasures might be lurking in your van. Number 6. Back Scratcher. Check out this heartwarming story about a couple from Cumbria who won an astounding $4.5 million on the Euro Millions lottery in July last year. Lee and Helen Kaczynski's first purchase as millionaires was a back scratcher worth $21. Can you believe it?
Yeah, wow.
They also bought a new house and car to celebrate their good fortune. The couple, who have been married for 24 years, have rented all their lives and never thought they would become homeowners. Lee, a lorry driver, was on the job when he received a call from his wife Helen informing him of their big win. Number 5. Used Volvo Estate. Joe and Jess Thwaite, Britain's biggest lottery winners, made their first big purchase in June last year. They got a used Volvo Estate. Despite winning a sizable $230 million in the Euro Millions, the couple opted for an understated gray V60, spending a relatively modest $47,000. Joe, 49, and Jess, 44, are often spotted arriving in the car at their front gate of their $810,000 Grade 2 listed home. Despite their windfall, neighbors are unsurprised that the pair have been so restrained with their money. They describe Joe and Jess as down-to-earth people who have worked hard their whole lives. Instead of living the rich, comfy life, the couple pressed ahead with their original plan to do up their house and ensure everything was sorted as they originally planned. The fact that they've not blown it all on sports cars or booze shows how humble they are. Number 4. 5-bedroom eco mansion. Picture this, a self-proclaimed white van man living in a modest 3-bedroom home near Cirencester suddenly became filthy rich overnight. Nigel Page, 43, was the luckiest winner of a humongous $69 million jackpot in February 2010. With his ample wealth, he wasted no time marrying his girlfriend Justine and moving into a gorgeous 5-bedroom eco-mansion in the lush Cotswolds. That's not all. Nigel also generously gave their old home to their loyal cleaner. Fast forward to 2016, the couple spent a substantial $7.5 million on a Grade 2 listed 8-bedroom Cotswolds mansion to undergo a serious renovation. However, not every aspect of Nigel's life became a fairy tale overnight. He reportedly paid his ex-wife, Wendy, a cumbersome $2.5 million after she made a legal claim for a portion of his fortune. The two had separated a decade prior to his monumental win. Now, before we get into our top 3, imagine what your life would be like if you had an extra $1,000 every day. Would it change your life? Yes. Would it change your family's life?
Are you kidding me?
To be very clear, this is 100% possible, and honestly, not hard to do.
How?
If you want to learn how you can do this, click the link in the description, where you will immediately learn about the simple 3-step method that is helping people make thousands of dollars per month from the comfort of their own home. You can do it too. Click the link in the description now. Okay, let's move on with number 3, 90 acres of land. It was the news that changed their lives forever.
Here we go.
Gillian Bayford, a kind-hearted children's nurse, and her husband, Adrian, a seller of records, scooped an enormous fortune of $184 million in August 2012. They plan to spend their money on deluxe holidays and fancy cars. It was a dream come true. But as much as it hurts to say it, fairy tales don't always have happy endings. Just 15 months after their superb win, Gillian and Adrian split up. However, despite going their separate ways, they remained on good terms, determined to make the most of their fabulous fortunes. Adrian moved into a giant Georgian mansion with a gigantic 90 acres of land. Impressive, right? With the vast space at his disposal, he even organized the Cambridge Rock Festival on the grounds to save it from being canceled. Now that's a jaw-dropping flex. As for love, Adrian found it again in the form of stable girl Sam Burbridge. After just 2 weeks, he whisked her away to the Maldives for a romantic getaway where he popped the question. Sadly, their engagement didn't last and they split up 3 years later. On the other hand, Gillian found love with a car salesman named Alan Warnock. Number 2, mansion with 400 acres of land.
What?
Neil Trotter, a car mechanic and racing driver from Coulston, had always dreamed of hitting the jackpot. He thought he heard every Only Fools and Horses joke, but Neil couldn't believe his luck when he won the Euro Millions jackpot worth $135 million in 2014. As he celebrated with his family and friends, he joked, "Being Trotters, we were always going to be millionaires one day." Neil had no idea his life would change forever when he told his father's office staff that this time tomorrow he would be a millionaire. Little did he know, his lucky stars had already aligned themselves, and he had become the 4th biggest lottery winner in the country within hours of uttering those words. It was a spectacular premonition that became a reality, and Neil was over the moon. With his fresh wealth, Neil spared no expense. He used it to buy a magnificent mansion steeped in history. The Grade 2 listed mansion came with its own lake and 400 acres of land. It was a dream come true for Neil and his family. A real-life fairy tale. Neil's win has since brought him fame and fortune, but he remains grounded and committed to living life to the fullest. It's no surprise that his story has inspired countless others to play the lottery in the hope of one day hitting it big. Who knows, their fairy tale could just be around the corner. And number 1, $25.5 million home in Hollywood Hills. Get ready to be startled by the intriguing story of Edwin Castro, the lucky winner of the world's largest lottery prize. After taking home an unbelievable $2.4 billion Powerball jackpot last November, Castro decided to make his wildest dreams come true by purchasing an opulent $25.5 million mansion in the heart of Hollywood Hills. The upscale property boasts 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, an infinity pool, a movie theater, a wine cellar, a game room, a steam shower, a fitness gym, and a sauna. And that's only the beginning. Castro's new home sits among the stars, with celebrity neighbors like Ariana Grande, Dakota Johnston, and Jimmy Kimmel. It's no surprise that this was the most costly real estate sale in Hollywood Hills so far this year. But wait, there's more. The sale was closed on March 1st, just 2 weeks after California lottery officials publicly revealed Castro's identity to satisfy state law. While we don't know much about Castro, we do know that he's one of the luckiest people on the planet. The odds of winning one of just 4 Powerball drawings held in 45 states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, with a jackpot of $1 billion or more, are 1 in 292 million. Castro managed to beat the odds and become an instant billionaire, despite accusations that he won underhandedly. California lottery officials have confirmed that Castro is indeed the legitimate victor and holder of the ticket with the winning numbers 10, 33, 41, 47, 56, and Powerball 10. He's now living the high life in his posh Hollywood Hills mansion. And if you think winning $2.04 billion is crazy, then wait till you see what happened in the tragic true story of the $280 million Powerball winner.
I really would like my old life back where I could walk the streets like a normal person, but got people coming up asking.
We all dream about hitting the jackpot someday. It will make us happy, right?
I want you to deal with your problems by becoming rich.
But you might want to think again after hearing the disastrous stories of some lotto winners. Sadly, many lotto winner stories actually end tragically. From lotto winners who never got paid to people who didn't know how to manage their wealth, these lotto stories are simply mind-blowing. Rachel Kennedy. Take a look at this 19-year-old. She thought she had it all, but it's unbelievable how life can throw you under the bus in a split second. Rachel Kennedy is a university student, and she couldn't believe it when her numbers appeared on a Euro Millions draw for a prize of $182 million. The 19-year-old from Hertfordshire called her mother and boyfriend Liam McCrowan into the room, where the three imagined how the teen's life might change after that. However, a call to lottery bosses Camelot immediately ended the fantasy, leaving business undergraduate Rachel absolutely heartbroken. It was a system bug that played with her dreams. A bug sent her an alert the next day naming her the winner. The ticket was not purchased automatically prior to the draw, and unfortunately, it had not been accepted. Camelot gave Rachel the best of luck in future draws after she went public with a heartbreakingly unlucky close call. I called the number thinking I had won $182 million, and they said, yeah, you've got the right numbers, but you didn't have the funds in your account for the payment of the ticket, so it didn't actually go through, the teenager explained. I was overjoyed when I believed I had won, but when I found out I hadn't, Liam was even more disappointed than I was. When she checked her account, she was surprised with a notice stating that her numbers were a winning match. Her heart had sunk, she recounted, when she discovered the issue shortly thereafter. Camelot stated in March of last year, "We're aware of Rachel's story and hope she gets in early to buy a ticket for the next big draw." That's one way to get heartbroken, but not as broken as the next guy, who lost his house, wife, daughter, and granddaughter after hitting the jackpot. Andrew Jack Whitaker. When Virginia native Jack Whitaker won big in 2002, he was already a billionaire. He chose a $113 million lump sum settlement, but ended up overpaying and making numerous disastrous investments. At one point, he was even robbed. After 5 years, all of the earnings had vanished. You might be wondering how something like this can happen. Andrew Whitaker Jr. won the lottery on Christmas in 2002 and had his 15 minutes of fame, but it rapidly wore off and things went downhill. Whitaker became an overnight sensation after winning the greatest U.S. lottery payout with a single ticket at the time. But it all began to crumble when the businessman and his family took up a private plane to appear on morning news shows to discuss his win and the $113.4 million lump sum award. However, things quickly turned sour. He was charged with DUI twice and sued several times, including once by 3 female casino employees who accused him of abuse. His family has also suffered a number of unfortunate deaths. Whitaker's drinking and gambling problems worsened, and he and his wife divorced. In 2004, a friend of his substance-abused granddaughter was discovered dead at his home. But the series of misfortunes were not over for Whitaker. His daughter, Ginger Whitaker Bragg, passed away in 2009 at the age of 42 following a long fight with cancer. "I wish I'd torn that ticket up," Whitaker remarked shortly after his daughter passed away. Whitaker suffered a home fire in Virginia in 2016. He was also the victim of several burglaries. Thieves stole a total of $100,000 from him at various times. And when the day came for his last breath at the age of 72, Whitaker was broke and miserable. It seems like some people aren't supposed to handle money, just like the next guy, who lost every penny of the $27 million after a major shopping spree and a substance abuse problem. David Lee Edwards. David Lee Edwards of Kentucky spent the majority of his $27 million win in less than 5 years on a home, expensive automobiles, a Learjet, and huge doses of narcotics. He passed away in 2013 at the age of 58, impoverished and alienated from his wife. David Lee Edwards of Ashland, Kentucky, was a convicted offender. He initially made the news in 2001 when he won $27 million in the Powerball lottery, which he referred to at the time as a poor man's dream. "I've made mistakes in the past, but they were a long time ago. I paid for my mistakes, and I went on with my life, and I straightened out my life, and I've been productive ever since," Edwards said after his 2001 victory. "I am who I am today because of God, and I am grateful. I can't undo the past, but I can make a difference in the future." But unfortunately, he wasn't true to his words. Edwards eventually spent the money on luxury items such as an enormous automobile collection and a $1.6 million mansion in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And by 2006, he had spent all of his earnings. Edwards spent a third of his life in prison due to armed robbery charges before winning the jackpot. Edwards appeared to have it all after winning the lottery, but after a major shopping spree and a substance addiction battle, he lost everything. "If he followed my advice, he'd be pulling in about $85,000 per month for the rest of his life," Edwards' financial advisor James Gibbs said. After Edwards' victory, Gibbs had placed Edwards' money in stocks and bonds, but instead of leaving it there, he used it to fund his luxurious lifestyle. Then in December 2013, at the age of 58, he passed away broken and all alone. Unfortunately, that is the sad reality of life. Like they say, always expect the unexpected, just like the next story. Coming up is Michael Hill, who went as far as to kill his wife after hitting the jackpot. Michael Todd Hill. In 2007, Michael Hill won $10 million in an Ultimate Millions scratch-off ticket purchased at a convenience store in North Carolina. Hill was charged with the crime of killing his wife 13 years later in 2020 and told the court he was impoverished and couldn't afford counsel. He was sentenced to life in prison for the demise of 23-year-old Kiana Graham. According to the state lottery administrator, Hill played an Extreme Millions scratch-off ticket at a petrol station in North Carolina and came up short in August 2017. That year, he went back to the cashier and opted to play Ultimate Millions instead. "I joked with her, 'How come you didn't sell me a winning ticket?' Hill stated. He went back to his car and began scratching in the parking lot. It didn't take long for him to realize he had a winning ticket. 'When I got to the dollar symbol, I knew I had won something,' he explained in 2017. 'I saw 1, then 0, and it still didn't hit me.' Hill returned inside and inquired about the ticket. 'She told me, sir, I think you just won $10 million. He explained to the state lottery. He immediately called his wife to inform her of the life-changing news. 'I told her to pack her bags because we just won $10 million. According to the lottery, Hill agreed to accept a flat sum of $6 million, which amounted to a little above $4 million after state and federal tax withholdings. He stated that his plan was to pay off debts and invest in his wife's business. Now, it's time to meet his wife, Kiana Graham. Hill was almost 3 years later in the midst of an 18-month relationship with Graham, but they had a history of domestic issues, a dark red flag. When her daughter failed to show up for work as a prison officer at Pender Correctional Institution, Graham's mother filed a missing persons complaint on July 20th, 2020. On the same day the report was submitted, the maids at the Shore Stay Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina, entered room 310 and discovered Graham on a bed with a single shot wound to the head. Authorities believe Graham was sleeping when she was fatally shot with a .45 caliber handgun. Hill ultimately admitted to police that Graham met her tragic end by him while she was messaging males at the hotel. Isn't it crazy what money can do to a sane man? The same thing happened in the next story, where a man called William Post had to sleep with one eye open, scared for his life after hitting the jackpot. William Bud Post. William Post won $16.2 million in 1988, but things swiftly went south. Post won the prize while playing a lottery game in Pennsylvania. He was $1 million in debt just a year after winning the lottery. How can a millionaire be $1 million in debt, you might ask? When he won $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery in 1988, he went on a buying binge that included residences, boats, and a plane he wasn't certified to fly. Post was not just broke again, but also one horrifying $1 million in debt just a year later. Post's brother was also jailed for hiring a hitman to assassinate him. Post ended up declaring bankruptcy, doing time in jail for pointing a gun at a debt collector, and being duped out of a third of his money by his landlord. Everybody dreams of winning money, but nobody realizes the nightmares that come out of the woodwork or the problems, Post said, and wise words have never been spoken. He passed away in 2006 at the age of 66 while living on disability payments, leaving behind his 7th wife and 9 children. Have you ever heard the story of a lottery winner who got shot the next day of issuing the ticket? Don't go anywhere because that is coming up next. Uruj Khan. A lottery winner who had a massive $1 million reward met his tragic end just weeks after purchasing a winning scratch-off ticket. His name was Uruj Khan, who immigrated to the United States from India, established a dry cleaning business with his wife in Chicago's West Rogers Park area. With a scratch-off lottery ticket, he won $1 million. He chose to receive it in the form of a $600,000 lump sum, which, after taxes, amounted to more than $424,000. But just one day after his lottery check was issued, but before he received it, the 46-year-old was found demised. He passed away from cyanide poisoning. Khan's estate, included the lottery check, was divided between his wife and her now estranged stepdaughter after a protracted probate struggle. So did Khan meet his tragic end by the hands of his wife? Was that a ploy to own his assets and wealth? Miraj Khan, his sister, remains certain that her brother's wife and father-in-law were involved in her brother's death, calling it an open and shut case. Shabana Ansari, the wife, is following her attorney's advice not to talk, but she has previously denied any involvement in the tragedy. Her father has done the same. Unfortunately, the unresolved issue left Miraj Khan's family feeling helpless and anguished. Honestly, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about him, she said of her brother. Each and every day. When I look at my niece and remember things we did, I get the impression he's saying to me, how come you're not doing anything about it? That is indeed a sad story. Coming up next is a lovely lady whose life got absolutely thrashed by the insane amounts of money. Mac W. Metcalf. A couple who received a multi-million-dollar windfall and eventually met their demise a few years later. In 2000, a $34 million lottery prize was won by Mac Metcalf and his divorced wife, Virginia G. Merida. They rapidly gathered their money and started splurging on expensive goods. The couple probably felt that anything was within their financial range when they were previously concerned with paying their monthly bills and timely apartment payment. Metcalf found fulfillment in a Southern Kentucky residence designed to resemble George Washington's Mount Vernon home and several classic vehicles. Merida decided to buy a Mercedes-Benz and live with numerous cats in a home close to the Ohio River. The lottery winners, however, soon had problems after a brief time of relaxation brought on by the sudden infusion of money. In 2003, just 3 years after their victory, Metcalf and Merida both passed very quickly. Merida was found dead in her bed by her son, Metcalf, who passed away from complications due to his drinking. Police stated that they did not have any suspicions of wrongdoing at the time Merida passed away, likely from a substance overdose. According to rumors, Metcalf had been into legal issues multiple times before he passed away. The two had purchased a $3 ticket at a truck stop in Florence, Kentucky, and by coincidence won $34.1 million in 2000. The couple's friends and family said that the deaths of the two were caused by significant sums of money being given to individuals who had personal problems and no prior expertise handling such a lot. A lottery lawyer stated, if he hadn't won, he would have worked like regular people and might have had 20 years left. But if you give someone with difficulties that much money, it merely encourages them to kill themselves. Similar sentiments were expressed by David Huff, the buyer who eventually acquired the Mount Vernon-style house from the Metcalf's estate. It was a textbook example of a person who had never had wealth and didn't know how to deal with it, according to Huff. I believe that once he received the money, things only got worse. Well, I can't agree more to that statement. Some say that the best decision after hitting the jackpot is to hire a financial advisor. But in the next story, that advice proved to be terribly false, which caused the life of an innocent man. Florida man Abraham Shakespeare. In the late 2000s, Shakespeare hit the jackpot and won millions of dollars on a lottery ticket. Abraham Shakespeare is a resident of Florida who won the lotto in November 2006. He won the $30 million prize, but chose the $16.9 million settlement to assist his family and friends. He used the money to purchase his dream home as well as homes for his cousins. Shakespeare also assisted a local hairdresser by repaying $87,000 in business debt. While winning the lottery may appear to be a pipe dream, Shakespeare eventually struggled with the enormous sum of money since he wasn't sure how to manage it. It was frightening because he had no idea how to manage his money. He had an entourage around him, but he didn't know half of them, his cousin Tammy Edom said. They were aware that he couldn't read. They were well aware of his inability to write. They were well aware that he could only sign his name. He was their cash cow. Cedric Odom, his other cousin, continued, and they milked him daily. Shakespeare pulled out of the spotlight after getting advice from a friend, owing to the hoopla surrounding his lotto victory. But here is the terrifying part. Shakespeare went missing 2 years after winning the lotto. He was discovered to have met his demise from a gunshot wound in the backyard of a Florida home after a 3-month search. It's time I introduced you to Moore. Shakespeare and Moore met in 2008 through a mutual acquaintance. Moore agreed to write a book on him to explain his tale at the time, and she later became his financial counselor. She was arrested in February 2010 by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and charged with being an accessory after the fact. But the charge was swiftly raised to first-degree murder in association with the demise of Shakespeare. In December 2012, a Florida jury found her guilty and sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Moore has maintained her innocence over the years, but Florida courts upheld her conviction in 2015 and again in 2019. They eventually labeled her ongoing allegations as confusing, conclusory, and ambiguous. If you are interested, Shakespeare's narrative is featured in the Hulu series Web of Death. Have you seen it? Although he had the greatest luck in the lottery, sadly that luck wasn't there when he needed it. In the next case, this $18 million winner got her luck rubbed out in a completely different situation. Janite Lee. When a lottery winner in Illinois hit a sizable jackpot in 1993, her wishes came true. The 60-year-old Janite Lee took home a stunning $18 million. She divided the prize money into 20 portions totaling $620,000 per year, which she used for charitable causes. In the late 1970s, Lee relocated from South Korea to the United States with her husband and 3 stepchildren. She ran a wig shop in Missouri and donated to several charities after winning. Lee lived the high life for the following 8 years, dining with leaders like President Bill Clinton. But that didn't last for long. After 10 years of funding and distributing donations, combined with credit card debt and occasional gambling, Lee squandered her riches. She left the University of Washington a large portion of her wealth, which was utilized to build a library and a reading room at the law school that bears her name. The amount Lee donated was kept a secret by the university, but a friend of Lee's claimed she gave $1.5 million. When Lee's stepdaughter graduated and she made the parents' honor roll as a Life Elliott benefactor, it was later reported that Lee made a second donation of between $500,000 and $1 million. Unfortunately, Lee's bank account quickly ran dry after she donated large sums of money to educational, political, and social causes. Thus, just 8 years later, Lee had filed for bankruptcy and had less than $700 in a bank account while facing $2.5 million in debt. Isn't it so true that money has the ability to turn around one's life? To be better or worse, that's for you to decide. Coming up next is a couple who hit a whopping $13 million, but ultimately had to file bankruptcy. Alex and Rhoda Toth. This couple only had $24 to their name in May 1990 when they cashed in on a $13 million Florida Lotto jackpot. The couple took their money in payments in the ominous amount of $666,666 until 2010. Over the next few years, the Toths went through various family squabbles and were charged with filing fraudulent income tax returns by the IRS, which ultimately led to bankruptcy filings in 2001 and 2002. Rhoda Toth was quoted as saying that the money has torn us apart and caused the loss of friends and family members. Sometimes I wish we could give it back, she said. Alex Toth passed away broke and facing federal charges in 2008 at the age of 60. Do you know, Americans have only a 1 in 3 billion chance of winning the billion-dollar Mega Millions jackpot? But be aware that nearly 70% of the lottery jackpot winners spend their winnings within 7 years. These incidents serve as examples of the disasters that might result from unexpected and considerable wealth, right? It's clear that the past lottery jackpot winners have met their tragic end, convicted of the same and gone from this world penniless. Why do you think all the lotto winners end up miserable? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.
Hey, Millionaire. We all imagine winning the lottery is the best thing that can happen to us. Just imagine the things you can do with all the money and zero financial stress. It's got to be pretty amazing, right? For most lottery winners, I'm sure that's exactly how it feels. But if you don't handle your newfound fortune in the right way, your dream life can quickly become a living nightmare. This is the story of how Billy Bob Harrell Jr. won the lottery and lost everything. Billy Bob Harrell Jr. was a print shop manager from Humble, Texas. The ex-Marine had been running the print shop for an incredible 12 years when out of the blue, he lost his job. It was a huge blow to him. Billy was a 47-year-old church-going family man, and he didn't know how to support his wife and kids without his print shop. He started job hunting, but it didn't go well, and he lost several more jobs in the mid-1990s before he finally landed a job as a shelf stacker at the local Home Depot. You can probably guess that this job didn't pay too well, but there wasn't a lot of work available in Billy's small hometown, and he was out of options. He stuck with his shelf stacking job for the next 3 years. But, like all of us, he dreamed of winning the lottery and quitting his minimum wage job for good. So, he often scraped together a few coins and buy a ticket or two. If he picked his own numbers, he'd always choose his children's birthdays. But it was a quick pick ticket that came through for him in the end. Billy had stopped by a Texaco Star Mart one Saturday in 1997 and grabbed a few lottery tickets, but he didn't really think he'd win, so he went to work without checking the numbers. It was only when he got home that evening that he checked the numbers in the Sunday newspaper. He couldn't believe what he saw. The numbers matched. He sent his son to the store to double-check the numbers. They still matched, but he had to wait a full day to get confirmation from a lottery official. But when they finally got back to him, he got the best news of his life. He was the only winner of a $31 million Lotto Texas jackpot. Billy and his wife made sure they handled their wins the right way. They immediately put the winning ticket in a safety deposit box and found an attorney with a good reputation to help. Finally, they got to collect their first check of 25 annual installments, and they now had a whopping $1.24 million in the bank. The 5 seconds it took to check those numbers have got to be the most exciting 5 seconds of Billy's life. Can you make the next 5 seconds of your life more exciting by hitting subscribe before I count down to 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep watching to find out what happened to Billy and his millions. Billy already knew the first thing he wanted to do with his money, and it wasn't buying a flashy car like you're thinking. He was very religious, and he wanted to donate 10% of his winnings to the church. That's a very big and very generous amount of cash to give away, but he didn't stop there. He soon gave money to another church as well. Then, he started giving money to anyone who needed it, which turned out to be a lot of people. He started with his own family. He bought a ranch and houses for family members. Plus, his wife and each of his kids got a shiny new car. But other people had realized he was giving money away like it grew on trees. Every time someone from his church mentioned that they had financial troubles, he was ready to write them a check. Then, Christmas rolled around, and Billy was there, buying 480 turkey dinners for needy families around town. I guess he realized how good all the attention felt, because it only got worse. He owned 6 houses now, although some were bought for family or friends. Soon, people were even showing up to his house to ask for money, and he'd give them what they wanted every time. This could have just been a sign that Billy was a naturally generous person. but it became obvious that he was just trying to impress people when he got a much younger girlfriend. Obviously, Billy's wife wasn't very happy about this, especially when Billy started buying this young woman expensive cars and jewelry. Just 8 months after hitting the jackpot, his wife understandably contacted an attorney to help her divorce Billy. They agreed to split the lottery winnings. An agreement was signed, and Billy's marriage was over. But his wife wasn't the only thing that Billy lost. His spending was getting worse by the day, and he was now already in debt. It was at this time that Billy was contacted by a company called Stone Street Capital. The company told Billy they specialized in helping lottery winners who agreed to receive their winnings in installments to change their minds and get a lump sum instead. They struck up a deal with Billy to do this. The deal was that Billy would receive $2.25 million in one payment right away. In exchange, Stone Street Capital would receive $6 million over the next 10 years, which was the remaining half of the winnings that still belonged to Billy. But anyone can see that $2.25 million in exchange for $6 million is definitely not a good deal. Well, everyone except Billy. Remember, Billy was seriously in debt by now, and that offer sounded like a good way to pay off his debt and continue living his lavish lifestyle. To everyone else, this looked like the scam it was, and they did everything they could to talk Billy out of it. His lawyer even told Billy that according to the law in Texas, lottery winners can't hand over their installment payments in exchange for a service. Even that wasn't enough to get Billy to listen. Before anyone could stop him, Billy had signed a contract that allowed Trust Corp America Incorporated to collect his half of the lottery winnings for the next 10 years, and only in exchange for a $2.25 million lump sum loan from Stone Street Capital. What's the worst way you ever spent your own money? Tell us in the comments, and keep watching to find out how Billy's story ends. Billy's financial manager was desperate now. He'd done everything he could to talk Billy out of that scam, but it hadn't worked. He now tried to convince Billy to take out life insurance. He was worried that if Billy suddenly died, his family would never be able to pay all the estate tax he owed. But in the end, it didn't matter. Billy hoped he could have got back together with his ex-wife after signing the contract with Stone Street Capital. But when he asked, she said there was no chance she'd come back to him. That seems fair enough, since he had cheated on her with a younger woman, and he'd even publicly paraded her around town, so everybody knew. You can bet his wife felt pretty humiliated by the way he treated her, but even though she didn't want to get back together with him, she said he should come to her house to have dinner with the family. It was now just 5 weeks after he signed the deal with Stone Street. He arrived early for dinner that night. His ex-wife greeted him, but his children never got to see him that night. Instead of waiting to have a lovely dinner with his family, like the good old days, Billy had other, much more tragic plans. Before anyone can stop him, he locked himself in his wife's bedroom. Then, he put a shotgun to his chest and pulled the trigger. He was already dead by the time people started arriving for dinner. He'd come prepared with a stack of notes addressed to each of his family members. The note for his ex-wife said, "I didn't want this. I just wanted you." His parents never believed he took his own life, but investigators say there was no other way he could have died. His children were mainly concerned about their finances. Billy's financial advisor had been 100% right about what would have happened if Billy suddenly died. Just like he'd said, Billy's kids inherited a shocking estate tax bill. They had no way of paying it off. To make matters worse, the $2.25 million that Billy had apparently received from Stone Street Capital had completely vanished. There's no doubt this is a tragic story, but hopefully you can learn some valuable lessons from it for when you win the lottery one day.
Learning one of the suspects is a mom who won a $1 million lottery last year.
Everyone dreams of winning the lottery. It's the ultimate financial windfall that promises to change your life forever. But for some lottery winners, the dream quickly turned into a nightmare.
No.
Instead of leading a life of luxury and leisure, they find themselves behind bars, facing criminal charges ranging from fraud to manslaughter. It's a cautionary tale highlighting the dark side of sudden wealth.
I want my money.
And the dangers of losing sight of what truly matters in life. In today's video, we'll explore the stories of several lottery winners who ended up in jail. These are the 10 lucky lottery winners who got in trouble with the law and eventually got locked away. Number 10. Stephanie Harville, and Mitchell Arnswald. In a classic rags to riches to rags story, Stephanie Harville and her husband, Mitchell Arnswald, won $500,000 from the Michigan lottery back in 2016. At the time, they were the talk of the town in Bay City, Michigan, with big plans to turn their lives around with their newly acquired wealth. Fast forward 3 years, the couple found themselves behind bars, accused of a burglary spree that left authorities scratching their heads. It's a bizarre turn of events that left many wondering how the couple went from lottery winners to alleged criminals. According to reports, police in Michigan linked Harville, 28, and Arnswald, 29, to a string of burglaries targeting houses around the state. The crimes were described as brazen and persistent, with authorities concerned that the couple could be responsible for even more break-ins than they knew of. So how did it all go so wrong? It's unclear what led the couple from a $500,000 prize to an alleged crime wave, but the spate of burglaries all share a similar style. The houses were unoccupied during the crimes, all happening in broad daylight. Since early July 2019, at least a dozen burglaries had hit Bay County, with similar cases reported in nearby Saginaw, Midland, Aronic, and Tuscola counties. Investigators finally caught a break in September 2019 after another break-in, this time at a rural residence in Merritt Township, Michigan. Police had already pieced together a description of a Ford SUV linked to some of the other burglaries, and they soon spotted a matching vehicle in a grocery store parking lot. Inside, they found Harville and Arnswald, as well as items stolen from the Merritt Township house. Armed with a warrant, they later searched Harville and Arnswald's house in Bay City and found more evidence tied to other burglaries. Harville and Arnswald faced one count of second-degree home invasion and possession of burglary tools, and the couple was denied bail. While they may have won big in the lottery, it seems their luck has run out. Number 9. Amanda Clayton. Amanda Clayton, a young Michigan woman who seemed to hit the jackpot by winning a hefty $1 million from a lottery game show, Make Me Rich, in 2011. She made headlines for all the wrong reasons in 2012. She was arrested for allegedly collecting food stamps and public health insurance after her big win, which she failed to declare as income. In March 2012, Detroit station WDIV reported that Amanda, mother of a 1-year-old, had received around $5,475 in food stamps and public medical benefits over a period of 8 months. Amanda believed she was eligible for food aid since she was not employed at the time. The charges against her sparked a heated debate, with supporters saying that Amanda simply wasn't aware of the rules and detractors calling her actions fraudulent. With maximum penalties, including 4 years in prison, Amanda's case attracted a lot of attention and promised to be an intriguing legal battle. She pled no contest to fraud in June 2012 and was sentenced to 9 months of probation the next month after her attorney, Todd Flood, represented her when the Attorney General's office prosecuted her for not reporting her winnings. Flood said the accused didn't have the maturity to handle the lump sum winnings and that she had some money left, but it was a far cry from where she started. She did repay about $5,500 in food aid and medical benefits. In April 2012, Governor Rick Schneider signed a law requiring lottery officials to inform Human Services about new winners. However, Amanda's story took a bleak turn when she was found dead in October 2012. 25-year-old Amanda died in her home in Ecorse, Michigan, due to a possible drug overdose. Indeed, a tragedy. Some people never unlearn their self-sabotaging behaviors and harmful patterns. Number 8. Ronnie Music Jr. A man from Georgia, Ronnie Music Jr., who won an astonishing $3 million in the lottery, pleaded guilty for using his windfall to fund a sinister drug ring in 2016. The 45-year-old used his 2015 lottery winnings to buy the narcotics and then supply them to others who would resell them at a profit. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Georgia disclosed that Music's co-conspirators attempted to sell about 11 pounds of the narcotics with a street value of more than $500,000. Agents recovered more than $1 million worth of methamphetamine, firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and $600,000 in cash in the case. U.S. Attorney Ed Tarver described Ronnie Music Jr. as someone who decided to test his luck by sinking millions of dollars of lottery winnings into the purchase and sales of narcotics. Tarver added, as a result of his unsound investment strategy, Music now faces decades in a federal prison. Music pleaded guilty to federal drug trafficking and firearm charges related to his operation in his home base of Ware County. He was sentenced after the state's probation office conducted a pre-sentence investigation. In February 2015, Georgia lottery officials announced Ronnie Music Jr.'s good fortune and said the maintenance supervisor and his wife planned to save a portion of the winnings. In a news release, Music said, "I buy tickets every once in a while. I couldn't believe it, and I still don't believe it." However, he's now facing the consequences of his actions and paying a hefty price for breaking the law. While some people keep plunging into the bottomless pits of self-destruction and never return, only a few know how to bounce back and make a comeback at life like never before. Like the next winner on our list. Number 7. Callie Rogers. Callie Rogers, the UK's youngest lottery winner, who won an unbelievable $2.2 million at 16 in 2003, made headlines again after blowing her winnings on parties, narcotics, and designer clothes for 20 years. The now 34-year-old mom of 4 from Cumbria has since turned her life around after a turbulent past few years. She even described her winnings as a curse and battled depression during the pressure of winning, which led her to try to take her own life. Her life became a roller coaster ride full of highs and lows after her massive win. Callie even got in trouble with the law. She crashed her car under the influence, was pepper sprayed, and hit with a driving ban. She refused a breathalyzer and appeared at Workington Magistrates Court, where she was banned from getting behind the wheel for 22 months and given an 11-week curfew. In 2018, she feared for her life when 2 women assaulted her after a night out, which resulted in her suffering from broken ribs, smashed teeth, concussion, and permanent damage to her sight. Although she gave away several hundreds of thousands of dollars to friends and family, she soon realized some people were just using her. The former checkout worker splurged thousands of dollars on plastic surgery and hundreds of thousands on narcotics and clothes. But she does not regret the win. Rogers is now studying to become a nurse at the University of Central Lancashire, having previously gone back to school in 2018 to study social care and work as a carer. She called out for lottery bosses to raise the minimum age of playing to 18 and said 16 is too young to handle such winnings responsibly. Callie stated that she had made some mistakes when she was young and naive, but winning the lottery played a significant role in shaping her into the person she is today. Despite the challenges, she's proud of who she has become. She's also mentioned that being given so much responsibility at 16 made it difficult for her to listen to advice, even if it was good. She added that she was too young and that her carefree childhood ended overnight, and she became an adult. In April 2021, lottery bosses implemented the change, raising the minimum age to 18. Although Callie's life is full of mishaps, and sadly she turned into an adult while she was still a naive child, it's wholesome to see her making progress, working hard to become a better person and building a life for herself and her family. Unfortunately, unlike Callie Rogers, many people don't get a chance at redemption, like this couple on our list. Number 6. Alex and Rhoda Toth. A couple down to their last $24 won a grand $13 million jackpot, but admitted that the money tore them apart. In 1990, Alex and Rhoda Toth won the Florida lottery and chose to take their winnings in installments, receiving $666,666 annually until 2010. "It is a lot of money," Alex said at the time. "It creates a lot of pressure on you." The Toths quickly spent their wealth on gifts, private jets across the world, and meeting celebrities such as Oprah Winfrey and Donald Trump. The couple also spent extravagantly on a 3-month trip to Las Vegas in a $1,000 a night penthouse suite at the Mirage. They then purchased 10 acres of land back in Florida. However, Alex lost large sums of his winnings gambling and never hired an accountant to deal with his taxes. When payments were made, their taxes were withheld, according to court documents. A decade after turning over their ticket for payment, they filed for bankruptcy in 2001 and 2002. Due to unpaid taxes, Alex and Rhoda were in debt to the IRS for $2.5 million and were later accused of tax fraud in 2006. Individually, Rhoda was responsible for $1.1 million of the owed amount, while her spouse, Alex, was accountable for $1.4. Rhoda was quoted as saying that the money has torn us apart, leading to rifts with their friends and families. Rhoda implored a judge in Florida in 1996 to shield her from her son and his then-girlfriend, alleging that they made death threats against her and the family pet and threatened to set her house and the vehicles on fire. Rhoda warned in her appeal to the court that someone was bound to be harmed unless the situation was resolved. By 2006, the former millionaire couple was living in squalid conditions, with their only source of electricity powering their home coming through an extension cord rigged to their car engine. The following year, Alex sought treatment for mental issues at a medical facility, which led to their eventual separation. In 2008, Alex died from a heart attack at the age of 60, broke and living off Social Security benefits before he could go on trial for tax fraud. Eventually, Rhoda was convicted in 2008 and sentenced to 2 years in prison for tax fraud. If you think that is crazy, wait until we tell you about the next lottery winner on our list, with an unbelievably extensive list of criminal records. Number 5. Gerald Muswagon. Gerald Muswagon was a fortunate lottery winner who won an enormous $10 million jackpot sometime in 1990. His victory had been a fairy tale turn in his otherwise troubled life. However, Muswagon did not know how to handle the fame and fortune that came with winning the lottery. His spending habits were widely known throughout Winnipeg, and rumors began to spread shortly after he won. He spent nearly all his winnings on buying new cars for himself and his friends, purchasing a lavish house that became a nightly party pad, and celebrating with narcotics and alcohol. He notoriously purchased 8 big-screen televisions for friends in one day. Muswagon's attempt at starting his own business, Gerald's Lodging, failed due to low sales and poor decisions. In October 2000, he led police on a high-speed chase in his new Chevy Silverado and was later sentenced to 3 months in jail for dangerous driving. After blowing all his fortune, Muswagon, who used to live in Norway House in northern Manitoba, resorted to working on his friend's farm, doing strenuous labor to make enough money to support his girlfriend and 6 young kids living in their humble home in Winnipeg. In November 2002, he was charged with repeatedly misbehaving with a 19-year-old woman who was helping him tidy his house after the death of his wife, Virginia. He later pleaded guilty to the assault charges and was allowed to serve his 3-month sentence intermittently on weekends so he could continue working during the week. Muswagon's lawyer stated that his client had a troubled past dating back to 1981. He had been convicted of several crimes, including assault causing bodily harm, drunk driving, theft, and breaking and entering. His lawyer claimed Muswagon's problematic behavior was due to difficulties adjusting to life after growing up with minimal education in Norway House. Things took an unexpected turn when he was found dead in 2005. Muswagon hanged himself in his parents' garage at 42 years old. People are very upset, and this is all very surprising, said his cousin, Mike Muswagon. He further revealed that Gerald had been depressed lately, but kept that part of him well hidden from others. His family attributed his death partly to the fact that he did not have anyone around to guide him during this time in his life. While the pros of winning the lottery are endless, the cons are boundless as well. And the next guy bore the brunt of it a little too much. Number 4. Lee Ryan. Lee Ryan realized his biggest monetary win was actually a grueling curse in disguise. The British man won an incredible amount, equivalent to $8 million, in the lottery in 1995. However, 6 months later, he was rotting behind bars branded the Lotto Lag for handling stolen cars. Although he served only 9 months of an 18-month sentence, Ryan became the first British lottery millionaire to be jailed. Ryan had prayed to be rich while serving a sentence in 1986 and was miraculously blessed with everything he had ever wanted. but he quickly discovered the downside of having a colossal fortune. He splashed his winnings on $1 million country mansion and a fleet of luxury cars, including a Porsche, a Bentley, a Ferrari, and a BMW, each with a personalized license plate. He had everything he could ever want, including a swimming pool, tennis court, sauna, jacuzzi, and game room. But the high life came with its own set of problems, and Ryan and his family received death threats, leading him to beef up security and hire a bodyguard. Influential people turned against him because of his attitude, and he took the threats seriously, ensuring that his family was well protected. Things began to fall apart, and he split with his wife in 2003, spending time with his new partner in Kyrgyzstan before returning to the UK in 2010. However, Ryan's life took a dramatic turn when he was forced to sleep on the streets in a sleeping bag just 15 years after his big win. He claimed he was happier than ever before and hosted homeless people as guests in his South London flat. He now works as a cameraman and still lives in the same flat, a far cry from the days of luxury and wealth. Ryan's story is a cruel reminder of how we should be careful with what we wish for. While Lee Ryan was still able to make a life for himself, despite all the back-breaking events, some just keep spiraling down with no end in sight, like our next lottery winner. Number 3, Freddie Young. A heart-shattering incident occurred in Detroit in 2012, when the then 63-year-old lottery winner Freddie Young was sentenced to 25 to 30 years in prison for the shooting death of his daughter's landlord. The victim in question was 45-year-old Greg McNicol, a native of Australia, outside the Detroit apartment building he owned. According to authorities, McNicol was involved in an argument with Young's daughter over 2 months' worth of unpaid rent. During a recorded interview with the police, Young claimed he didn't realize he was holding the gun until the weapon suddenly went off. Despite his arguments that he acted in self-defense, the jury found him guilty of second-degree manslaughter. However, one of his attorneys, Jeff Edison, stated that his client would appeal the sentence. Following the incident, a judge temporarily froze Young's money after McNicol's widow filed a wrongful death lawsuit. Even so, Young's Lottery Club shared a whopping $46 million jackpot in February 2011. Each club member was initially set to receive around $1.6 through a cash payout. At the court following the verdict, McNicol's widow expressed her sentiments and said she was pleased with the sentence given to Young. "I think that's the minimum that the whole family was expecting," she said. Life took an awful turn for Young and his family, and his story goes on to show no amount of money can save you from yourself and the hideous demons you hide within. It's nerve-wracking to know that Freddie Young was not a rare case who won big but ended up getting locked away. Number 2, Willie Hurt. In the year 1989, Lady Luck smiled upon Willie Hurt when he hit the jackpot. Can you imagine the rush of excitement coursing through your veins as he realized he had won a mind-boggling $3.1 million in the Michigan lottery? It was a golden ticket to a world of possibilities, a ticket to transform his existence into something unimaginable. But what seemed like a fairy tale come true quickly transformed into a haunting nightmare. The sudden influx of wealth clouded his judgment, and the grip of addiction trapped Willie. The insidious power of substance abuse shattered Willie's world like fragile glass. The love he once cherished, the bonds he held dear, disintegrated like ashes in the wind. With his novel wealth, he was a happy family man with 3 children and a wife. But within 2 years of cashing in his winning ticket, Hurt was penniless, addicted to narcotics, and in the midst of a painful divorce. His life had taken a woeful turn. To make matters worse, Hurt wound up in a legal quagmire when Wendy Elizabeth Kimmy, a 30-year-old woman, was fatally shot in the head at a boarding house where he had been renting a room for the past 3 weeks. Reports suggested that he and Kimmy had been on a 2-day drug and alcohol binge before the incident. Prosecutors allege that Hurt became enraged when they ran out of narcotics and shot Kimmy. He confessed to the crime and turned himself in. The judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation for Hurt. His jackpot winnings were coming in 20 annual installments of about $156,000 at the time. While a conviction would not have prevented him from receiving the money, much remains unknown about what ultimately happened to Hurt. It's natural to think that things evolve over time, and the odds of history repeating itself are pretty low. But the next person on our list would change your mind, whose case is similar to that of Willie Hurt. Number 1. Michael Hill. Finally, we have the harrowing case of Michael Hill that would make you lose all your faith in humanity. In 2017, a nuclear power worker from North Carolina, Michael Todd Hill, won a staggering $10 million lottery scratch-off ticket, and his life changed forever. He and his wife were overjoyed at their newfound wealth and made plans to pay off bills and invest in his wife's business. But little did they know that their happiness would be short-lived. Just a few years after his big win, 54-year-old Hill found himself in the middle of a domestic dispute with his 23-year-old girlfriend, Kiona Graham. Their relationship was tumultuous, and they had a history of problems. Then, in 2020, Graham was found dead in a hotel room with a gunshot wound to the head. He was the only other person in the room with her, and surveillance footage showed he was the last person to see her alive. He eventually confessed to authorities that he had killed Graham because she was texting other men while they were staying at the hotel. Despite his wealth, he was unable to control his jealousy and anger, and it ultimately led to a tragic ending. In 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder of Kiona Graham in 2020. Prosecutors stated that Hill was also given a 22 to 36-month sentence for possessing a firearm as a convicted felon. This sentence will be served simultaneously with his life sentence. It's very likely that the deceased family would sue him in civil court, and they would be awarded the lottery money. This case is a cutthroat example of how money can't solve your problems, and it certainly cannot fix your internal issues. Number 15. Rachel Kennedy and Liam McCrohan. Rachel Kennedy and Liam McCrohan are a young British couple who won a gigantic lottery jackpot in 2021. Almost. Every week, Rachel played exactly the same numbers on her Euro Millions lottery tickets. She was so dedicated, she'd set up her online lottery account to automatically buy a ticket with those numbers. Then, one week, Rachel and Liam checked the lottery draw and couldn't believe their eyes. The winning numbers for the 228 million euro jackpot matched Rachel's numbers. They immediately started planning how they were going to spend such a gigantic amount of cash. The young couple realized their lives had changed forever. But when Rachel checked her online ticket, she spotted something weird. It wasn't there. She contacted the National Lottery website to find out what happened and got the worst possible news. There had been an error when the automatic ticket purchase was taking place, and the payment never went through. In other words, she didn't have a ticket. They missed out on that mind-blowing sum of money, and there was absolutely nothing they can do about it. It might be the biggest lottery tragedy of all time, but at least their lives didn't change. The next winner lost more than he won. Number 14. Daniel Carley. Canadian Daniel Carley won the Ontario Lottery at the most perfect moment ever. He was just about to marry the woman of his dreams, who also happened to be pregnant with their first child. He had a pretty perfect life already, but when he won an incredible 5 million Canadian dollars, or about 4.4 million US dollars, he was given the kind of financial stability that most new parents can only dream of. And his life would have been perfect if he'd used his money that way. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. Instead, he and his friends gathered at his dad's bar for a celebration party. That would have been just fine, but when the party ended, Daniel didn't want to stop, so he didn't. Over the next 10 years, he partied all his money away. It won't surprise you that his young wife left to look after his child in a more stable environment. His friends didn't want to know this out-of-control version of Daniel, so they disappeared from his life too. It wasn't long before he ran out of money, and when that happened, he turned to drugs again. But this time, he was selling them. He was eventually arrested and sent to prison for his crimes. Daniel chose a path that led him to losing his perfect life. But sometimes, lottery winners do everything right, and their story still ends in tragedy. That's what happened to the next winner on our list. Number 13. Francisco Guerrero. Francisco Guerrero had been a hard worker his whole life. He'd worked as a bricklayer in Spain, slowly earning himself enough money to support his family, and even buying more than one house. That's pretty impressive. After all that hard work, it almost feels like he'd earned his lottery win. He hit a jackpot worth about $8.6 million. But he wasn't the partying type, and he didn't know what to do with all that cash. So he figured the most responsible thing to do was to take it to the bank. That's the advice lottery winners are always given, so it sounds like a pretty good decision. The experts at the bank told him to invest 40% of his winnings and put the rest into a savings account for his children. That sounded like a good idea to him, and he left his money in their hands. He continued going to work and lived his life the way he did before winning the lottery. After all, he was pretty happy that way. But then something went wrong. He suffered a serious injury to his knee that meant he needed expensive surgery. Luckily, he had millions in that savings account thanks to his lottery winnings. He went down to the bank to withdraw some of his cash, but he was shocked to discover the account was totally empty. What he learned next would horrify anyone. The bank had put 40% of his winnings into a terrible investment. They told him there were no risks, but they were totally wrong. Not only had they lost his investment, but they'd got him into serious debt. To pay it off, they used all the cash in the savings account meant for his kids, and they'd even lost all the properties he'd earned through hard work. That's the perfect example of how many things can go wrong when you hit the lottery. It's pretty sad when someone loses everything because of someone else's mistake, but this next winner definitely caused their own downfall. Number 12. Evelyn Basor. You could say Evelyn Basor was one of the luckiest people who ever lived. That's because she won the lottery not once, but twice. And her two wins happened within just 4 months of each other. The first win in 1985 was worth a whopping $3.9 million. And the second, the next year, was another $1.4 million. That's a lot of cash now, but it was worth even more then. She could have done nearly anything with it. So what did she choose to do? Well, she took it to the casino. I guess she figured her luck worked for her in the past, and she'd make even more money. But she was wrong. Her winning streak was over, and the last time anyone heard of her, she was living in a trailer park and working 2 jobs to pay for food. That's a pretty irresponsible way to spend your lottery winnings. But she's not the only winner who blew all her cash. Here's another one. Number 11. Michael Carroll. At the tender age of just 19, British teen Michael Carroll won the lottery. He collected the $14 million with a police ankle bracelet still around his leg. That probably gives you a good idea of what happened next. He spent wildly buying a mansion he didn't like and spending even more on fixing it up. He built a demolition derby racetrack in the back garden where he'd destroy luxury cars. He was starting the day with cocaine and vodka for breakfast, and he spent millions on sex parties in the mansion, even though he had a wife and child. Soon, his family and friends had left him because he was behaving so badly. Lucky for him, when he went broke, his wife decided to take pity on him, and she came back. That's a surprisingly happy ending, considering he said he'd be dead by now if he still had the money. But not everyone gets their life back after. Just ask. Number 10. Andrew Jack Whitaker. Andrew Whitaker was living a pretty comfortable life before he won the lottery. He already had $17 million that he'd earned himself. There's no doubt that's impressive. But his fortune skyrocketed when he got lucky and won the lottery too. His win was a gigantic $315 million. You'd think that because he was pretty rich already, he would have known how to keep that money. But fate had other plans. Criminals got the better of him, totally emptying his bank account with several robberies. Within just 4 years, he was totally broke. He'd even lost the millions of dollars he'd had before winning the lottery. He's not the only winner who was taken advantage of. This next winner was also treated pretty badly. Number 9. Callie Rogers. Back in 2003, Callie Rogers was living in foster care and working at a supermarket. Then she suddenly made headlines when she became the world's youngest ever lottery winner. She was only 16 at the time, but she now had an incredible $2.3 million in the bank. The British teen totally changed her life with that money, but sadly, not in a good way. She started spending it on crazy stuff, with no role models to help her make good decisions. She also developed a drug habit, and her strange lifestyle made her depressed. That led her to spend tons of cash on plastic surgery, hoping to feel a little better about herself. But it didn't help. She said the money made her feel like nobody cared about her because she would buy drinks for people in bars who were only talking to her so they can get a story they could sell to tabloids. She lost every cent she won and now campaigns to try to change the minimum age for lottery players. Luckily, Callie says she's much happier now she doesn't have the money anymore. She's also a proud mom of 3. But what about this next teenage lottery winner? Number 8. Jane Park. Jane Park was earning just $9 an hour at an office job in 2013. It was her birthday, and she decided to treat herself to her first ever lottery ticket. Incredibly, that ticket hit the jackpot. She won the equivalent of 1.3 million thanks to the Euro Millions lottery, and she was only 17 years old. Unfortunately, instead of using it to start her adult life so she could follow her dreams, she just spent it. Her first purchase was a Louis Vuitton handbag, and that was pretty much how she continued. She bought luxury cars, holidays, and even plastic surgery. It didn't take long before her crazy lifestyle stopped being fun. She said she began to feel depressed and very lonely. Luckily, she could move back in with her mom and try to get her life back on track. Her mom had been pretty clever and had made sure she put some of Jane's winnings into a savings account. So Jane still had some of her millions. And like Callie, she also campaigns to get the minimum legal age for playing the lottery changed. She says she was just too young to handle it. Jane and Callie might be right. Maybe teenagers don't have the maturity to manage that much cash. But our next winner proves that adults can be pretty irresponsible too. Number 7. Keith Go. Keith Go was 58 when he won the lottery. He was a happily married baker when he hit the UK National Lottery jackpot. He went home with winnings equal to $12 million. He could have retired with that money, but instead, he decided to spend it. All he wanted to do was drive fast cars, bet tons of cash on horse racing, spend time in his private executive box at Aston Villa Football Club, and drink loads of alcohol. That's when the real problem started. Tragically, his alcohol addiction finally got so bad that his wife was forced to leave him. That wasn't an easy decision. They loved each other, and splitting up really hurt them both. Before Keith won the lottery, they had been looking forward to retiring and living a peaceful life together. Sadly, soon after his wife left, Keith passed away due to a heart attack. Most people are pretty sure he died of a broken heart. Keith isn't the only lottery winner to die as a result of what he chose to do with his money. But this next story is much weirder. Number 6. Justin Ryder. Justin Ryder's lottery win wasn't as big as most people on this list. He only got $600,000, but he wasn't worried. To him, that was just his chance to afford his ultimate dream. Don't even try to guess what it was. It's too crazy. Justin had watched the classic Austin Powers film Goldmember, and it had given him an idea. He wanted a gold member of his own. So he went out and spent his lottery winnings on some gold paint. And when he got home, he happily dipped his nether regions into it. Then he just went on with his life as normal, glad that he achieved his dream. But it wasn't long before he realized something didn't feel right. So he went back to the store and bought another tin of paint. This time, he chose the more expensive option, which was colored with real gold. But weirdly, he chose not to wash off the first coat before redipping. That was his big mistake. The first pot of paint he'd bought was lead-based paint, and the toxic ingredient was slowly absorbing into his bloodstream. Sadly, he was found dead soon after. The cause of death was lead poisoning. He's not the only lottery winner who didn't do enough research before spending his winnings. Here's another one that made a big mistake by not reading the fine print. Number 5. John McGinnis. Back in 1997, John McGinnis was working as a hospital porter when he hit the UK National Lottery jackpot. His winnings were equal to about $16.4 million, which was a ton of cash back in the 90s. He was pretty generous with his winnings, but he also used some to buy luxuries for himself. But he wasn't spending too wildly, definitely not enough to go broke. He decided to spend some of his fortune on his biggest passion, football. So he bought a whole team. It cost him $4.9 million. That's a lot of cash, but he still had loads left, except for one mistake. He had no idea that by buying the team, he was accepting personal responsibility for their debts. Within 12 years, the team's debts had eaten through every cent John had won, plus his own personal savings he'd earned before winning the lottery. He tried to follow his passion, but ended up broke instead. There's no shortage of lottery winners like John, who accidentally picked up a really bad deal. Here's another British winner who made a bad British choice. Number 4. John Roberts. John Roberts was so poor before winning the lottery that he was living in government housing in Scotland because he couldn't afford to pay rent. We can only imagine what it must have felt like to suddenly win over $5 million. Unfortunately, he didn't really know what to do with all that cash, so he started buying any luxury item he could dream of. But that wasn't his biggest mistake. One day, 2 of his friends came to him with a business deal. They easily convinced him to invest. John loved the idea of going into business with friends, except they weren't really his friends. Sadly, they'd lied about the investment, and they took off with the last of John's money. Just 3 years after his big win, he was broke and living in a mobile home. It's definitely true, you gotta be careful when choosing your friends. Here's another lottery winner who found that out the hard way. Number 3. Marie Holmes. Marie Holmes was a single mom who was working 3 jobs to put food on the table. Then, in 2015, she got lucky when her North Carolina Powerball ticket won her a whopping $188 million. That was her share of a larger $564 million jackpot that was split between 3 winners. Her problem started straight away when her family accused her of stealing the ticket. They'd said Marie's mom was actually the one who chose the numbers. It turned out they were right. Marie thought it was a quick pick ticket, but her mom had carefully chosen the numbers for her. But luckily for Marie, her mom said she wanted her to have the ticket. After that, Marie's life only got worse. She tried to do something good by giving money to her church, but the priest sued her for not giving them as much as she'd said at the start. Then she started spending way too much cash, and she kept having to bail her heroin trafficker boyfriend out of prison. Brace yourself. The cash she spent on his bail added up to a mind-blowing $21 million. Crazy, right? It didn't work. He still got a prison sentence in the end. You'd think he would at least be grateful, but he later sued her from prison when she sold some of the expensive gifts she bought him. She's basically broke these days. Marie was betrayed by a lot of people. She clearly didn't deserve to be sued for generously giving people money, but this next winner did the opposite and caused her own problems. Number 2. Tanya Lynn Dickerson. This story started in Waffle House. The group of waitresses who worked there had become pretty close over the years, and they decided they would buy some lottery tickets together. The idea was that each one would buy a ticket, and if any of the tickets won, they'd split the winnings between them. It was a nice thought, even if none of them expected to win. But they were wrong. One of the waitresses checked her ticket the next day and realized it was worth $10 million. There was just one problem. Tonda was the holder of the winning ticket, and she decided she didn't want to share. Obviously, the other waitresses were pretty unhappy about that. Not only had they lost out on their money, but they had also been betrayed by someone they thought was their friend. So they got together and sued Tonda. Unfortunately, they lost the case, and Tonda got away with all the cash. By then, the boss from Waffle House had heard what she'd done. He couldn't believe she treated her friends like that and got away with it. So he tried to get some justice for the waitresses. He sued Tonda, saying the waitress had promised to buy him a new truck if they'd won. The case went all the way to Supreme Court, but Tonda eventually won again. She'd nearly got away with it, but then she slipped up. Tonda decided to protect her money by opening a corporation. That would have been safe, except that she gifted shares of the corporation to her family. That was a big mistake because she didn't realize those shares qualified for gift tax. The IRS came after her when they realized the tax hadn't been paid, and she was forced to hand over $1 million. So none of her friends got the share of the money, but at least she had to pay something. She's not even the only lottery winner who was meant to share the cash but tried to take it all for herself. The last winner on our list got what was coming to her though. Number 1. Denise Rossi. Denise Rossi got super lucky one day when she hit the lottery jackpot. She won $1.3 million. That's pretty amazing news. So you'd think the first thing she would have done is tell her husband. After all, they've been married for 25 years. But she had other plans. she kept her win a secret, and instead of celebrating with her husband, Thomas, she asked for a divorce. She said later she didn't want him to get any of the money. She just wanted it all for herself and was happy to break up their marriage to get her way. But it didn't work. During her divorce proceedings, someone found out what she'd done, and that information really counted against her. According to the law, not disclosing the lottery win counted as fraud. In the end, she was ordered to pay all of her winnings to her now ex-husband.